Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has Senju bloodline and inheritance. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by THEMARINE 2013 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Long before the founding of the hidden villages, during an era of endless wars between mankind, the Shinju, a tree revered as a deity, bore a chakra fruit once every 1,000 years. Although it was forbidden to consume the Shinju's fruit, it was eaten by Princess Kagaya Otsutsuki, who used the power it granted her to end the wars plaguing the lands. Sometime after this, Kagaya gave birth to 2 sons who became the first humans born with chakra. Angered by the power gained by her children, Kagaya manifested together with the Shinju into an incarnation that would be christened by many as the Jibai, 10 Tails, which ravaged the world attempting to reclaim its lost chakra. In the final duel between the 10 Tails and Kagaya's sons, Hagoromo Otsutsuki and Homura Otsutsuki, they managed to defeat the beast and sealed it within Hagoromo, becoming its Jinchuriki, causing him to be revered as the Rikid-Messi Nin Sage of 6 Paths for the virtue of his victory. With his knowledge of the concept of chakra, Hagoromo traveled across the land, giving chakra to others, as well as spreading his ideals and religion, ninjutsu, which eventually became the ability known as ninjutsu. With Hagoromo's great deeds and ultimate desire to bring peace to the war-torn world, made him widely known as the Konoha no Kykseiishu savior of this world. Hagoromo's ultimate wish was to establish peace across the world, but it was a goal that would never be achieved in a single lifetime. Knowing this, he chose to entrust his dream and legacy to his 2 sons, Indra Otsutsuki and Asura Otsutsuki, and began teaching them ninjutsu. Hagoromo acknowledged Indra, his eldest son, as a true prodigy, who quickly began to revel in his natural prowess and became very solitary. Asura, his youngest son, proved to be the exact opposite, having shown no special abilities or natural talent, but he pushed on through his limitations, growing stronger and more mature because of his struggles and making friends along the way. Hagoromo acknowledged Asura's chosen path, agreeing that love and cooperation were the true key to peace. Hagoromo, later inspired by Asura, separated the Jibai's chakra within his body and used Banbutsu SMZM, creation of all things, ability to divide it into 9 separate bodies, creating the Bijk and giving each of them a name. As a result of extracting them all at once, Hagoromo was left weakened and incapacitated for several months, though the powerful life force of the Jibai husk kept him alive. Hagoromo, sometime after their creation, Hagoromo told the young Biju that they were all still linked to one another despite being separate entities. Hagoromo also told them that they would eventually become one again, yet not as they originally were, and that one shall appear at that time to show them what true power is. Hagoromo eventually used Jibaku Tensei, heavenly body bursting from the earth, to seal the husk of the Jibai in what would become the moon. On his deathbed, Hagoromo chose Asura to be his successor, but Indra, overcome by bitterness and envy as well as being manipulated by a dark figure, fought against his brother, beginning a war between them that would continue through the ages and descendants. Hagoromo, suspecting that Indra, or one of his reincarnations, would eventually attempt to take Asura's power for themselves, he left behind a tablet detailing his history in an attempt to make them reconsider. Only those who possess the Rinnegan can fully decipher the contents of the tablet, while a reader with other dijutsu such as the Sharingan can still partially interpret the information. However, unknown to him, the dark force had altered the contents of Hagoromo's tablet so he could manipulate Indra's descendants, the Uchiha clan, through the ages into resurrecting Kagaya and initiating infinite Tsukiyomi anew. Era of the Warring States. The Warring States era is one of the most blood-soaked part of the history of ninja, where shinobi clans were formed from those who learned to wield chakra as a weapon, becoming the opposite of what the Rikid Sennin's ninja taught. Hundreds of clans over the centuries were born or destroyed, many of them over the course of time made elemental Kekkei Genkai or just specialized in one type of element. Such clans were the Yuki clans and their Hymton Ice Release, or the Sushim clans Shmton Crystal Release AN. I know Gurin may not have a clan, but I found a name that will be fitting for her clan if she did. The most notable clans to master singular elements was the Uchiha clan with their Katon Fire Release, along with the Sarutobi clan too. The Hizuki clan mastered Suiton Water Release, to an art where they can turn their whole bodies to water if need be. Clans also just mastered Inton Yin Release, to master Jinjutsu such as the Kurama clan, to the point it became a Kekkei Genkai, or master the shadows like the Nara clan. Some used it to master the mind like the Yamanaka clan. Other clans mastered Ymton Yang Release, like the Akamichi, to expand their bodies to become giants in battle, or like the Aburam clan who uses their bodies as hives for their Kikaichikin sex. Some clans even had mastered both Onmyoton Yin Yang Release, but did not have it mastered to the point of the Rikido Sennin, but enough to use it. There are only two known clans that have Dijutsu, them being the Uchiha clan with their Sharingan and the Hyuga clan with their Byakugan. Many believing that the Sharingan was a mutation of the Byakugan because they are the exact opposites of each other. But throughout the war-torn world, two clans always fought each other, clans that are cousins but have forgotten so because of hatred of the other. The Senju and Uchiha clans fought each other every time they went into battle for resources, power, or land. Some 5 centuries before the founding of the hidden villages, the Senju clan had been split in two, with clan members wanting peace and wanting to stop fighting. Those Senju that left the clan eventually settled on an island surrounded by whirlpools off the coast of what would later be known as Hai no Kuni Land of Fire and Yu no Kuni Land of Hot Water. They then called themselves the Uzumaki after the whirlpools protecting the island. Even though the Senju and now Uzumaki clans were separate, they always stayed close in relationship and through countless marriages. While the Senju were well-rounded as a clan, the Uzumaki became extremely respected and powerful ninjas, and with their use of FKINJUTSU sealing jutsu. Unknowing to the two families, every few generations something unexpected would happen. Since their deaths, Indra's and Asura's chakra would transmigrate into one of their descendants. Every transmigration would happen every 5 generations, with the next being directly related to the last. But Asura's transmigration was different than Indra's, with Asura's family being split in two. His chakra only transmigrated into those who were both Senju and Uzumaki, bringing the KKGENKAI bloodline limit back together. 25 years before the founding of Konoha no Sato Hidden Leaf Village, Asura's next transmigrate reincarnation would be born as Hashirama Senju, and Indra transmigrate reincarnation would be born as Madara Uchiha. Hashirama was born as the oldest of 4 children to Bitsuma Senju, leader of the Senju clan, and Momoko Senju, formerly Uzumaki. Madara was born to Tajima Uchiha, leader of the Uchiha clan, and Renko Uchiha. 10 years later, Hashirama first came across Madara at the edge of a river where the young Uchiha was attempting to skip a stone all the way across. Easily getting a rock to the other side, Hashirama introduced himself to Madara as his rival in stone skipping and noted that he was clearly leading. Neither Hashirama nor Madara revealed their surnames, as it was unwise in such an era. Unbeknownst to them, their clans had been in a bloody feud for ages, hired constantly by opposing factions to counterbalance the other. The two knew that the only way for them to survive was to befriend their enemies. As they skipped stones together, the two boys discovered the corpse of a member of the Hagoromo clan. Soon afterward, Hashirama attended the burial of his younger brother, Kawurama, who had been murdered by members of the Uchiha clan. Saddened by Kawurama's passing, Hashirama got into a brief altercation with his father over what he considered to be the pointless death of his brother. That moment convinced Hashirama, with his brother Tobirama's support, that there would have to be peace amongst ninja. Not long passed before Itama, Hashirama and Tobirama's other younger brother also fell to the perils of war. The event led Hashirama to return to the riverbank, where he met with Madara once more and with him discussed the death of Itama. Finding solace in each other's company, the two continued to meet by the river, where they sparred, shared techniques and talked over prospects for the future. It was during one of these meetings that Hashirama revealed his dream to create a new village where people could live in peace and, more importantly, where children could grow up and study together. It would be a place where shinobi would be assigned missions based on their level of skill and not out of necessity to fill a battlefield with forces, learned or not. Madara agreed, and the two children decided to build their dream village below the very cliff where they talked. However, Hashirama's friendship with the young Uchiha was not long to last, as Bitsuma soon discovered from Tobirama that his son had been meeting with Madara. Revealing to Hashirama that Madara was in fact an Uchiha who had killed several of the Senju's strongest shinobi, he ordered his son to use his meetings with Madara to spy on him and, if necessary, to kill him. Still, Hashirama could not stand to betray his friend. When the two boys met again, they warned each other that a trap had been set for the other, but as they fled, they looked back in shock to find their fathers and younger brothers standing across from each other, fully ready for combat. After the initial scuffle, Madara and Hashirama intervened, getting between their respective families. Madara, realizing that he had to choose between Hashirama and their dreamer his family, regretfully decided to end his friendship with the young Senju, determined to protect his brother Izuna. Hashirama tried to make Madara reconsider, but Madara refused to let go of his anger for the Senju. He announced his full name as Madara Uchiha to Hashirama, awakening his Sharingan. From then on, Madara would constantly battle Hashirama with the intent of erasing him from his past. Eventually, he and Izuna awakened the Manjukam Sharingan. With their newly obtained power, the two brothers became the head of the clan, with Madara becoming its leader. During this time, Hashirama discovered his ability to mix his Suiton and Doton chakra and give it life to create Mokuton would release. Sometime afterwards, Madara and Izuna fought Hashirama and Tobirama, where Izuna was mortally wounded by Tobirama. Madara retreated and Izuna died from his wounds but left Madara his eyes, granting him the Eternal Mangekyou Sharingan. After Madara obtained his Eternal Mangekyou Sharingan, Madara later confronted Hashirama again with his newfound ocular prowess, but nonetheless, after a day-long battle, Hashirama defeated the Jaded Uchiha and approached him once more to create peace between their clans. However, Madara once again refused to accept and stated that he would not trust the Senju unless Hashirama either took his own life or that of his younger brother. Choosing suicide, Hashirama asked his brother to accept the Uchiha as allies and end their feud, but was stopped by Madara, who then accepted the truce. Era of the Hidden Villages. The Uchiha and Senju, two clans that started the Warring States period, and all the clans they had conquered finally coming together as one to form the ninja village Madara and Hashirama once dreamed of together. Ultimately, it was Madara who named the village Konoha. Madara's relationship with Hashirama steadily became much like from their childhood, sharing their ideas and hopes. When Hashirama told Madara about the plans for the village leader, who would be known as the Hokage, he wished to give the title of Hokage Fire Shadow to Madara and even carve his likeness onto the cliffside overlooking the village. Tobirama, however, convinced him that the villagers would never follow Madara and that they should be given the choice of who should lead them. Hashirama reluctantly agreed. The villagers selected Hashirama over Madara for the title of Shadame Hokage First Fire Shadow. Afterwards, Hashirama and Madara met at the Naka Shrine, where Hashirama expressed his wish that Madara inherit the title of Nidame Hokage Second Fire Shadow. Once the villagers started seeing him in another light, however, Madara noted that Tobirama would more than likely inherit that title, and that when he did, it would not bode well for the Uchiha. Madara's breaking point, however, came after deciphering the tablet beneath the Naka Shrine and discovering the true origins of all shinobi, which left him greatly in despair upon realizing mankind became cursed to repeat history. Later, talking in the Naka Shrine for their last civil meeting, Madara told Hashirama his intent on leaving the village and he had a plan to make his dream become a reality, falling victim to the curse of hatred once again. Hashirama tried to convince Madara to let him help his childhood friend, but Madara scoffed at Hashirama's attempt to follow him, saying that no one can get behind him. Sometime after becoming Hokage, Hashirama convened the very first meeting of the Five Kage, accompanied by his brother and future successor Tobirama. Overwhelmed that the leaders of the 5 great shinobi countries actually attended the meeting, Hashirama lowered his head thankfully to his equals, and while admonished by his brothers and peers alike, he noted he could not help it. As the meeting got underway and Tobirama explained that the cage would have to pay for the tailed beasts they would receive, Hashirama questioned his brother, asking whether giving them away for free wasn't alright. Silenced by his brother, he listened on as the proceedings continued. As infighting broke out among the cage due to what they believed to be the Shadame Kazukige's brazen demand, Hashirama made his plea to them to preserve the future of their children. He also expressed concern that the peace agreement between the 5 of them would not last long, but he dreamed of a future where everyone would be united under one cause. Eventually, he shared the tailed beasts to other villages in an attempt to maintain peace and equalize the power between the nations, thus ending the dispute between them. Soon afterwards, Konoha began to prosper as Hashirama and Madara had dreamed it would in childhood, causing other nations to adopt Konoha's shinobi nation system. But Madara, abandoned by his clan, left the village and sought out Kurama the Kikbi no Kitsune 9-tailed fox and subdued it using his Sharingan. He later returned in order to challenge Hashirama in battle, fighting at the site that would later be called the Valley of the End. During the battle, Hashirama attempted to reason with Madara to stop fighting and come to his senses, but realizing that Madara would not back down, Hashirama entered Senin Modm Sage mode to end the battle. With his augmented power, Hashirama was able to destroy Madara's Susanoo and subdue the 9 tails, forcing Madara to confront Hashirama directly. The battle waged on well into the night, leaving both shinobi battered and exhausted. In a final clash, Madara was the last one standing. Looking back at Madara, Hashirama tried one more time to reason with Madara, noting how far their former shared dream had come. When Madara scoffed at the remarks, Hashirama resolved to finish Madara off, revealing himself behind Madara and stabbing him through the chest. As Madara realized the Hashirama he had clashed with was a clone, Hashirama bitterly accepted that Madara had truly relinquished his ties to their village and declared that he would always protect it. Madara vowed that one day the village would become shrouded in darkness before finally collapsing. In the aftermath of intense battle, the defeated Madara faked his death and went into hiding, while Hashirama's wife, Mito Uzumaki, became the 9 tails first Jinchkri power of a human sacrifice by sealing the beast within herself. The devastation to the terrain which ensued from this battle were so great that it created an entire land formation that eventually became known as the Valley of the End. Thinking about the future of Konoha, he also trained the young Hiruzen Sarutobi, one of his brother's team members. He lived long enough to meet his first grandchild, Tsunade, and noted that he had spoiled her a great deal, even going as far as to teach her how to gamble. Hashirama died some time after the founding of Konoha in one of the many wars that were raging during this revolutionary era, but not before passing on the title of Hokage to Tobirama. Hanahagakure no Sato 20 years before Kikbi attack. This was the era of the Second Shinobi World War. Those who were on leave were having fun before going off to war again to most likely die by getting drunk, dancing, and of course getting lucky, so they let loose. Except for one busty blonde beauty who wore her hair in two pigtails with her bangs drooped down the sides of her face, and she wore a Jinin uniform. The woman had a sour look on her face that said I'm not in the mood, fuck off. Hey Tsunade Haim, there you are. The woman now identified as Tsunade looked to her right to see perverted baka of a teammate Jiraiya. What do you want, you pervert? Tsunade said in a sour tone. Aw come on Tsunade, don't be like that, have some fun. Said Jiraiya in a happy tone with a huge grin. I'll be however I want to be, you slimy perverted bastard. Why don't you just go die alone away from me? Tsunade said in a harsh tone, but Jiraiya couldn't blame her. War always led to death, and wounds of Tsunade's father, Tenchi Senju's death were still there. Tsunade, you know this was bound to happen, but I promise you that no one else you love is going to die like Tenchi did if I have anything to say about it. Said Jiraiya. Shut the fuck up. You have no right to speak his name, you rotten bastard. She yelled with tears forming in her eyes. He was a friend of mine, Tsunade, I know how important he was to you, but you still have your brother and grandmother here. Jiraiya explained. Shut up. Shut up. I loved my father, I feel all alone now that he's gone, you inconsiderate asshole. Tsunade yelled with fury and swung her fist at Jiraiya, only for her punch to be stopped by her teammate grabbing her wrist before fist could connect. Jiraiya then pulled Tsunade in a compassionate hug which surprised her. That's not true, you still have Sarutobi-sensei, Orochimaru, your brother and grandmother and me, and I promise I will never leave your side because I love you. Jiraiya exclaimed. I always have and always will. Jiraiya's words had made Tsunade cry tears of joy and sadness. Thank you Jiraiya. Whispered Tsunade. Anytime Haim, let me buy you a drink. Stated Jiraiya. Thank goodness the drinks are free or else Jiraiya would have gone broke. A few hours and many drinks later, we find our current hero and heroine of this era drunk as a skunk leaning on each other having a good time. Oh Jiraiya-kun, you treat me so well. Said an intoxicated Tsunade nibbling on Jiraiya's earlobe. Anything for you Tsunade Chan, replied Jiraiya equally intoxicated and grinning like a pervert. Come on. Said Tsunade while dragging Jiraiya out of the bar they were in. Where are we going Tsunade Haim? Questioned a drunken Jiraiya. You'll see. Said Tsunade with a sly smile. They both arrived at the Senju clan estate, which made Jiraiya more curious, and the two traveled the upper floor where Tsunade sleeps. Tsunade Haim. What are we doing here? Jiraiya asked. His answer was Tsunade jumping him and kissing him. She pushed him into her room, locked the door, pushed him onto her bed, and you get the idea. The next morning, Jiraiya. A scream awoke the Gamasenin, Toad Sage. What happened? Jiraiya asked. He turned in the direction of the voice to see a naked and pissed off Tsunade with an expression that said ready to kill. Now normally Jiraiya would run while he still had the chance, but he was distracted with Tsunade's mountains that were exposed in all their incredible glory. Suddenly while he was distracted by the glorious mounds, Tsunade punched Jiraiya with so much force he went through the wall and landed on the other side of the village. Unfortunately for him it was in the women's side of the hot springs. Throughout all this after Tsunade's sobering punch Jiraiya had one thought, what did I do? A few weeks later, in the weeks following Tsunade and Jiraiya's little incident, we find Tsunade sitting in the Senju clan compound in turmoil about a new discovery she uncovered just that morning. She was pregnant. Tsunade Senju, heiress to the Senju clan, granddaughter to the Shodai Hokage, lead medic of Konohagakure Hospital, was pregnant. Not just pregnant, but pregnant with Jiraiya's, her perverted teammate's child. She didn't know what to do, she didn't want to go to her sensei, because he would have to tell the council, and the council will make a big deal about it. So she went to one person who she could trust, her grandmother Mito Uzumaki. Flashback. Few hours ago, Tsunade was walking through the Senju compound towards her grandmother's little house in one of the many forests, in the compound where she moved to after her grandfather died and Tenchi her father became clan head. As she headed for the door she soon came upon it and knocked. Tap, tap, tap. Come in Tsunade, I'm in the kitchen, said the old weak voice of Mito Uzumaki. I presume Mito has the ability to sense chakra and discern whose chakra is whose. Tsunade then walked in, taking her heels off at the door, and headed toward the back of the house where the kitchen was. Hello Mito Botch, Aunt Tsunade said, greeting her grandmother with a hug too. Hello Tsunade-chan. What brings you here, asked Mito in a welcoming but concerned voice. Can I not come visit my grandmother, asked Tsunade. Well, normally that wouldn't be a problem Tsunade-chan, but I sense that your emotions are in turmoil and you never visit me unless you want advice on training or to vent about that teammate of yours. Stated Mito with amusement, making Tsunade pout. Well, it's about my teammate again. Stated Tsunade with a little venom in her tone. 3 weeks ago when I was mourning father's death, I was drinking in the shinobi-only bar 4 blocks away from the Jounin lounge, and Jiraiya showed up. We got into a little spat, and he said he loved me and won't let anything happen to me like what happened to TM-san. Tsunade stated quietly. He then offered to get me drinks, and we both drank for a couple of hours. I don't remember what happened after that, but I woke up the next morning naked right next to him, so I punched him out of my room, through the wall, exclaimed Tsunade with anger in her voice. Last week I was supposed to start menstruating, but it didn't happen. Then at the start of this week I started to get morning sickness. I didn't want to believe it, so I went to the hospital to get checked out, and I'm pregnant. Tsunade exclaimed, saddened that her ninja career was going to end now, but mad at Jiraiya for getting her pregnant. What should I do, Bachan? War is about to break out with Iwa and Suna, and I can't stay and raise a baby that will most likely become a target if word gets out I'm going to have a child. The hospital will need me along with Jiraiya and Orochimaru if we all go out on missions together, hysterically stated Tsunade with a frustrated look on her face. Have you talked to Hiruzen about this yet? Questioned Mito. No, I have not said a word to Sarutobi-sensei about it because he would have to tell the council and that Warhawk Danzu about it, and they will make it a big deal. Danzu may or may not try and take the child from me. Soon after, more than likely the whole of Konoha would find out about it, then the rest of the elemental nations. Soon after, my child and me would become a target of assassination for being related to the Senju, especially grandfather, replied Tsunade and Mito nodding knowingly. Have the child, when it comes put it in the orphanage till the war is over, then come and claim the child later as yours, stated Mito wisely. I would say leave it here with his or her great Aba-chan, but alas I am but an old woman living alone with my granddaughter Kunoichi and my grandson well on his way to becoming a shinobi. Are you sure that's wise, Bachan? What would happen if someone found out the baby is mine in the meantime? Asked Tsunade. With concern in her voice. Yes, Tsunade, that is the wisest thing to do if you are not here to take care of the child, because it showed you cared enough to offer a home to the child that you yourself could not have provided at the time. And I don't think anyone would find out the child is yours if you take great caution and precaution in hiding him from the world till the time is right. Mito stated wisely, like the wise old lady she is. She knew what it's like to raise a child during wartime, even when it was hard on her when her husband wasn't around to comfort her. Tsunade was thinking it over in her head about the pros of this, her child being safe and being taken care of like it should be. The cons about it is she wouldn't be able to watch him or her grow up and wouldn't be able to train or help him or her if he or she joins the academy and wants to become a ninja. So Tsunade steeled her resolve to protect her child at all costs and eventually come back for him, then her eyes widened when she remembered something. What do I tell Jiraiya? How do I tell him he got me pregnant and that I will be put it in the orphanage till the war's end? Tsunade asked, frantically wanting to get an answer from Mito. You tell him nothing until the war is over for the protection of future generations of the Senju clan. The less amount of people who know about the child the better, so enemies of the Senju in and out of the village don't send assassins beforehand if they find out prematurely of who the parents are. Replies Mito in a tone that left no more room for argument. Even if Jiraiya is Tobirama's grandson, I cannot let the heir to the Senju clan be a target before he can even talk, thought Mito. Now do you want some tea, Tsunade-chan? Asked Mito with smile. Flashback end. 9 months later. It has been 9 months since Tsunade talked to her grandmother about what to do about her child. Afterwards she went to her sensei to ask for an extended mission away from Jiraiya and the village, which he granted to her because he understood her plight but not knowing the real reason behind it. It was also during this time that Jiraiya received a prophecy concerning him while training on Mount Mamboku from Gamamaru Ulgama Sennin Great Toad Sage. Firstly saying that he would go on to become a talented shinobi and a pervert without equal. He would also walk across the world as a sage, observing all creation, watching as nature takes its course, and in doing so he would also write a book. The Gama Sennin also told Jiraiya that he would one day have a student with the power to save or destroy the world and that it would be his actions that would determine which path this student took. It was after Jiraiya found out Tsunade left that he went to his sensei and told him about the prophecy the Toad Sage gave him. Flashback 9 months earlier, Jiraiya was walking through the Senju compound closing in the clan head house on his way to talk to Tsunade about what happened between them a few weeks before. He was almost there when he sensed a chakra signature to his right coming towards him from the forests in the direction of Mito's little house. Jiraiya then honed his senses to see who it was and found out that it was Mito herself on the way to see him, most likely sensing him too, so he waited for her to meet up with him. It only took a few minutes for her to show, and when she did she started speaking. She's not here. She started to explain. Where did she go? Jiraiya questioned, already knowing he isn't going to like it. Hiruzen gave her an extended mission at her own request, she won't be back for 10 months. Replied Mito, irked that she was interrupted. Would she do that? asked a confused Jiraiya, not knowing the real reason like Hiruzen. She needed to get away from the village for a short time so she can finish coping with the loss of her father. Said Mito, I suggest that you not go searching for her, either you know how she gets when she is upset and I'm sure that Hiruzen won't like that either. Finished Mito, knowing Jiraiya knew how Tsunade gets when upset and that Hiruzen won't like Jiraiya taking off to go after her. I know what you mean. Stated Jiraiya, a shiver going down his spine remembering being punched across the village. Jiraiya then sighed and after thanking Mito, turned and left the compound thinking about what he would say to Tsunade the next time he saw her. Which soon led him to thinking about traveling the world like the Toad Sage said he would be doing after visiting his sensei. Hokage office. Jiraiya just arrived outside the window to Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage's office, to tell him about the prophecy that he received from the great Toad Sage. And knocked, hearing a feint come in from the Hokage sitting at his desk doing the bane of all Kage's paperwork. Jiraiya opened the window and hopped in saying, "Hey sensei, how's it going?" asked Jiraiya smiling at his sensei. "Ah, Jiraiya-kun, it's nice to see you again. How was your training with the toads?" asked a Hokage smiling at Jiraiya. "It was very fulfilling to say the least sensei, got started training in Senjutsu chakra, Sage chakra, and received a prophecy from the Agama Sennin regarding me," stated Jiraiya in a happy tone before becoming serious. Hiruzen became serious after that statement too and asked, "What is this prophecy you speak of?" questioned the Hokage, curious about what it would be. "The prophecy the great sage gave me said that I would go on to become a talented shinobi and a pervert without equal. I would also walk across the world as a sage, observing all creation, watching as nature takes its course, and in doing so I would also write a book. The Agama Sennin also told me that I would one day have a student with the power to save or destroy the world and that it would be my actions that would determine which path this student took. So it looks like I have to travel the world like the sage said and find this child of prophecy," said Jiraiya, looking at his sensei with determination in his eyes. Looks like you have a big responsibility and duty ahead of yourself, Jiraiya," stated the Sandaime. "So am I able to leave on this mission, sensei?" asked Jiraiya, still in the serious tone. "If what you told me is true, then I see no reason for you not to go on a training trip of sorts for a short time to find this child of prophecy and find inspiration for that book you are supposed to write," replied the Hokage. "Thank you sensei, I will leave within the next few days, so I guess I will see you when you call me back to the village," stated Jiraiya with a smile and jumped back out the window. Sarutobi turned in his chair to look out the window towards the village and thought, "I hope you do find this child of prophecy, Jiraiya, because from what you told me the prophecy says you will change the world," and with that the Sandaime went back to doing his paperwork. Flashback end. Hanahagakure no Sato 1 a.m. It was 1 in the morning in Konoha with only a few people out and about, at bars, and having fun, most of them inactive shinobi who are on leave from the war that started just a few months ago. With the First Shinobi World War ending with an armistice treaty, it left the 5 great shinobi nations seriously wounded. The treaty led to the last 16 years of peace until the economic disparity between the countries had become a serious problem. The nations began to form factions, and under the pretext of expanding fair rights, the countries started to use military force to expand their territories, thus, the war started. First, it was Tsunade trying to expand its territory into what would later be known as Kawa no Kuni, so it would have farmland for crops and water going into the country. Kurigakure soon followed, trying to get parts of the mainland so Mizu no Kuni would have some form of mainland territory. Finally, it was Iwagakure and Konohagakure. Konohagakure invaded Aim no Kuni first, after Konoha Intelligence Division found out after capturing an Iwa spy that they were going to attack Aim to get to Hai no Kuni's borders and have a foothold for later expanding. It was why Tsunade Senju was moving around the Konoha at 1 in the morning with a bundle in her arms. The bundle in her arms was her baby boy that she had at an undisclosed location with a couple of hired midwives from a town somewhere in Hai no Kuni. Now she was finally in the leaf where she would take her and Jiraiya's baby to the orphanage till she can come back and take care of him. She decided to give her baby after her grandfather, Hashirama. Her baby had blonde hair like her, but it was spiky like his father's. He had cerulean blue eyes like her mother, but had features of his father there. She soon arrived at the orphanage and looked down at Hashirama. "I promise I will come back for you when the war is over. But until then, stay safe here at this nice home where you can make friends, so I don't have to live in fear of you being attacked and you won't grow up lonely," Tsunade said with tears rolling down her face. She kissed Hashirama's head as he started crying and put him down on the front step, pulled out a note with his name on it and a short note, "Take care of him till I return." She knocked and fled through the forest into the village away from the orphanage, though she did not notice the small gust of wind that blew by the front door and whisked the card with the name and note on it away into the nearby river. It was at that moment the door opened and a young woman in her early 20s walked out. She then heard the crying baby and looked down. She gasped and picked the baby up into her arms. "It's okay, little one, you don't have to be afraid, I'm here," said the young woman. The baby stopped crying and opened his eyes for the first time. The child had gorgeous cerulean eyes and he looked up at the woman curiously. "Aren't you adorable?" she said. "Don't worry, I'll take care of you." With this the baby giggled with an adorable smile. The young woman took the infant in her arms inside the orphanage. "You have a name, right?" the woman asked. Only for her response only to be stared at with a confused look. "Of course not, I'll call you Minato, do you like that name?" The baby giggled at the name. "I guess you do. My name is Haruko and it's nice to meet you, Minato," Haruko said with a smile looking at the giggling baby. 12 years before Kikbi attack. It has been 8 years since the night Tsunade dropped her Minato off at the orphanage and left to fight in the war. The war lasted 6 years. 6 years that saw the death of thousands of shinobi and kunoichi. But the rise of many heroes and heroines throughout the elemental nations and saw the death of many others. After Minato was left at the orphanage, Tsunade went to the front lines against Tsunagakure. There she became known as the world's best medic nin for her use of medic skills and her knowledge to counter Chiyo the puppet mistress's poison that was used against Konoha forces. It was 4 years later when Tsunade learned from her younger brother that he wanted to become Hokage like their grandfather and surpass him. Tsunade then gave him their grandfather's necklace in the hopes that it would help him achieve his dream. The day after his birthday, Nawaki died in battle after running into an explosive trap. Orochimaru was with him, along with 2 other genin. His body was so heavily mutilated that it was beyond recognition. The necklace was retrieved by Orochimaru and returned to a devastated Tsunade. Tsunade was consoled by Jiraiya and Orochimaru, who were both visually crying at her loss. In the same year, Jiraiya, Tsunade and Orochimaru would battle the feared leader of Omegakure no Sado, Sanshoko no Hanzm, Hanzu the Salamander. It was here that Hanzm would give them a title feared throughout the elemental nations, Densetsu no Sannin, legendary 3 ninja. After the battle, the Sannin met Nagato, Konan and Yahiko, who wanted to become ninja to bring peace to AIM and then the rest of the world. Jiraiya would stay behind and look after them for a short time, but will eventually be inspired by Nagato in his creation of his first book, Tales of an Utterly Gutsy Ninja. After 3 years, Jiraiya left and returned to the Leaf, never seeing or hearing from those 3 again. It was after the battle Hanzm, Tsunade went back to the Leaf to advocate for the inclusion of medical ninja to be incorporated into teams that were on the battlefield, but unable to, as Hiruzen informs her, the conflict makes it impossible for them to utilize resources or the time to train such ninja. It was by that time that a discouraged Tsunade met Dan Katten, who seconds her request of focusing on finding ways to save their comrades' lives on the battlefield. In time, finding herself and Dan have similar ideals, Tsunade fell in love with him. As a sign of her affection, and in the hopes that this time it would help make his dreams come true, Tsunade gave him Hashirama's necklace prior to his death, with the necklace returning to her possession, rumored as a cursed item that kills anyone other than Tsunade who wears it. Developing hemophobia, which renders her unable to take part in any more battles. The deaths of both Nawaki and Dan disillusioned Tsunade to see the Hokage title as nothing but a fool's position. Jiraiya would come home to the love of his life with another man, but bear with it because he knows that even if he did love her, she didn't love him. So Jiraiya put himself into his work and became well renowned because of it. Less than a year and a half later, Jiraiya would receive word that Dan Katten, Tsunade's lover, died on the battlefield. And that she became cold-hearted and distant. It has 6 years after the start of the war and the death of brother and Dan that she finally went to claim her child she left at the orphanage so long ago. Only to find something horrible. 14 years before Kikbi attack. It has been 6 years. 6 years since she took her son there and left him to go fight in the war and protect her village and precious people. She left him there to protect him from the enemies of the clan in and out of the village. So now 6 years afterwards we find Tsunade Senju on her way back to Konohagakure no Sado after R&R away from Konoha to mourn the deaths of her brother and lover. She was walking down the main roadway toward Konoha's eastern gate. She was going at it slowly because she didn't want to rush to the village right away. She was still in turmoil about what happened to Dan and Nawaki, but she had to find her son. Him and her grandmother were all that was left of her family. Tsunade was close to the gate, now less than 100 meters away. She arrived at the gate to see the gate guards guarding the gates at the post that was set up next to it. They notice her as she walks up to the post to sign in like all shinobi and kunoichi have to do after a leave of absence or mission. It was different than civilians who can leave anytime they want to. After signing in, she started walking towards her clan compound so she can get ready to go to the orphanage that she dropped her son off at. As she was walking, she was receiving waves and smiles from civilians and ninja alike. She didn't mind it at all, but she didn't care for what they were doing. She only had one goal in mind, and that was to get her son back. She soon arrived at her compound and walked through the gates. As she was walking, she thought about visiting her grandmother to see how she was doing, because Mito was so close to her death and she wouldn't last long before she died. Thinking it over, she decided to go and see her grandmother before she went home to get ready for the meeting of her son. She made her way through the forest within the compound and saw the house her grandmother lived in come into view. It took her a minute or two to get to the house and knock on the door. She soon heard a very, very faint come in. And knew something was wrong. She opened the door and walked in. She didn't know what to expect, so she kept her guard up just in case of an attack. She soon found Mito in her room on her bed covered up with a blanket and an IV attached to her wrist. Tsunade walked over to Mito with a little hesitation, but did so nonetheless. Mito looked over and smiled weakly at her granddaughter, happy to see her for the first time in a few years. Tsunade smiled back with a smile that did not reach her eyes with a look of sadness and regret. "Tsunade-chan," said Mito weakly. "It's good to see you after these past few tragic years," added Mito. "Hi Ba-chan. It's good to see you too," replied Tsunade, some happiness returning to her eyes. "How are you doing Ba-chan? I didn't know you were bedridden," stated Tsunade with her sadness returning. "Ah, this is nothing. I am fine, just a little older than the last time you saw me," said Mito with a small amount of amusement in her voice. I see that Ba-chan," Tsunade said while giggling a bit in amusement at her grandmother's old lady jokes. "But there are things we need to discuss Tsunade that are going to make your heart hurt a lot more than it already is," stated Mito, becoming serious in the blink of an eye like all Uzumaki do when something important is happening or needs to be said and heard. "The first thing that we need to talk about is your child you left at the orphanage on the other side of the village," continued Mito before being interrupted by Tsunade. "What about him? Has something happened to him or the orphanage?" stated a fear-stricken Tsunade with a gut feeling something bad happened to her child. "Yes, something did happen to him and the orphanage," stated Mito. "And don't interrupt me again," reprimanded Mito, with Tsunade rubbing her neck with one hand, chuckling embarrassed about what she did. "Tsunade, I'm not going to sugarcoat this to make it sound better, but a few years ago an spy was found within the village and he started to flee. When he fled in the direction of the orphanage," stated a solemn Mito with tears at the corner of her eyes. "He neared the orphanage and to get the Konoha shinobi of his tail, he threw 5 kunai with explosive tags attached to them at the building." Mito was now in tears and Tsunade knew from the start something bad happened, and now that she knew she started crying as Mito continued. "They did everything they could to save as many of the children as possible, but they only got 15 out of the 60 that were there." Mito now had tear tracks running down her cheeks. While Tsunade was sobbing into her hand and couldn't control herself. Mito finally had the courage to continue with the next part of what she was meaning to tell Tsunade. "Tsunade," Mito said in all seriousness as she possibly could at the moment while still crying tears of sadness. "There is more that you need to know. I am getting old and I have a burden that needs to be passed on to another Uzumaki," said Mito. "That Uzumaki was brought here a year ago just before Yuzashigakure, my home village, was attacked and destroyed by a joint operation of Kumo, Iwa, Kiri, and Yugakure. Her name is Kushina Uzumaki," said Mito. "There is something you also don't know. But when your grandfather fought Madara Uchiha at the Valley of the End and stopped Madara's control over the Kyuubi, it was not let free but sealed away into a human host. A human host that happens to be me," Mito exclaimed to Tsunade, drawing a gasp of surprise from the weeping women. But why do you have the Kyuubi sealed within you? Why would you want to become its Shinji-Kriki?" stated Tsunade with shock and surprise that her grandmother would willingly become a human sacrifice. "I sealed the Kyuubi within me to keep it tranquil and to help your grandfather defend the leaf against the power of the Bijk and Madara's warpath for its destruction," said Mito. "But why are you having to do that now of all times when I need you the most? You are the last family I have left here at home in Konoha," exclaimed Tsunade while trying to wrap her head around the thought of not having her grandmother around. "I have to do it soon because if I die the Kyuubi will too, and 3 years after that it will be reborn back in the place it died at," stated Mito. "So if I don't do it the village will be destroyed and Hashirama's dream will be all for naught." Tsunade thought about it and it did make sense for her grandmother to transfer the Kyuubi to this Kushina girl for the leaf to still be around after her death. After that thought though she started crying again because not only did she lose her son, but she will now be losing her grandmother too. Tsunade looked at Mito with eyes that had nothing but sadness in them. She then said, "If you have to do it, do it. If it is for Jiji's village then so be it. After you are gone I am going to leave the village for some time. I just won't be able to stay here with all my family gone and no attachment to the village left," said an emotional Tsunade. "I know how you feel Tsunade-chan," stated Mito. "I lost most of my clan's men and women in this last war, with the rest all scattered throughout the elemental nations and no way of contacting them. The only ones that I know of is you and Kushina-chan. Just remember Tsunade-chan, I will always love you no matter what path you take," Mito said with a small smile. Tsunade smiled back with a small smile to remembering all the good times with her family and grandmother. "I love you too Ba-chan, I'm going to miss you when you are gone. I will miss you too and I will be watching over you wherever you go. Remember that," said Mito. Tsunade started to get up to leave, but not before leaning down to kiss her grandmother's head and saying goodbye to her and left not looking back. She would not return to the leaf for the next 15 years. But what she didn't know along with Mito is that her son lives, he was adopted at the age of 1.5 and lived with a civilian family the Namikas. 4 years later, his adoptive parents would die in another village, trying make a business deal to help fund Konoha for its war effort. He became an orphan once again, but the Hokage and the other councils let him get an apartment because he was in the village's ninja academy, aiming to become a ninja and protect the leaf like his adoptive parents. 12 years before Kikbi attack, it was a beautiful day in Konohagakure no Sato with the sun shining and a nice breeze running through the village to where it is not too hot in places from the heat of Hai no Kuni. Today also marked the start of a new generation of shinobi who will protect the leaf from her enemies and defend her interests throughout the shinobi world. The graduates this year all compose of clan heirs or heiresses, ranging from the Haikuta to Yamanaka and Kurama clans. There is also the Nara, Akimichi, Aburam and Inyazuka. Even a clan from outside the leaf but has close ties with the village has a student here and her name is Kushina Uzumaki, last known clan member of her clan that is thought to be extinct after this last war excluding her of course. But the most notable is the Uchiha clan which is the most prestigious clan in the leaf following the Senju clan, whom from what the shinobi world thinks is all but extinct, with the only survivor being Tsunade's Senju. But what the world doesn't know, even the Hokage and Tsunade, is that the heir of the Senju clan is not Tsunade, but a boy that goes by the name Minato Namikaze, a boy that is a true prodigy in his own right. The only other person to be this great a prodigy would have been Orochimaru of the Sannin. The boy who is the supposed dead son of Tsunade Senju and Jiraiya of the Sannin that only she knows about after the death of her grandmother Mito Uzumaki. But today is the Genin graduation day, a day where students of the Ninja Academy passed the final academy exam that their senseis gave them to finally become ninja of Konoha. It was a step closer for Minato to become Hokage like he dreamed about, to earn the respect admiration of all of Konohagakure no Sato. He didn't know how true those words would ring throughout the ninja world. Kushina also wanted to become the first female Hokage, so people won't see her as an outsider or call her names because of her hair and respect her. This was also the day Jiraiya would meet his son for the first time and not know of it. He would wonder for many years why he felt a connection between him and Minato, but that's for another time. Now we see our current hero and heroine sitting in a classroom waiting for their teacher Tsubachi Yamino, future father to Iruka Yamino, to say their team assignments for who is on their team and who their sensei is going to be. The names of the students from clans are Shibi Aburam, Hiashi Haikuta, Sumen Yazuka, Inoichi Yamanaka, Chimzai Akimichi, Shikaku Nara, Mabuki Yamanaka, Kushina Uzumaki, Mikoto Uchiha, Murakumo Kurama, and Takashi Kahaku. The civilian-born orphans or adopted orphans were Kizashi Haruno, Minato Namikaze, Senju, Tuchi Ichiraku, and a few other irrelevant civilian-born students that have no correlation with the story. Now it has been a few minutes since the class started and it was starting to get noisy with the class getting restless. But that ended when Tsubachi cleared his throat to get the class's attention and it worked, all eyes were on him. Alright class, today is your last day as my official students and your first day as ninja of Konohagakure no Sato. Stated Tsubachi, getting choruses of cheers from the class. It took a few minutes for the class to settle down again. Now let's begin with the team assignments that Hokage-sama set for you all. Let's start with Team 1, Team 7, Kushina Uzumaki, Minato Namikaze, Tuchi Ichiraku under Jiraiya of the Sannin. Team 8, Shibi Aburam, Hiashi Haikuta, Sumen Yazuka under Kagami Uchiha. Team 9, Mabuki Yamanaka, Kizashi Haruno, Mikoto Uchiha under Fuki Kahaku. Team 10, Inoichi Yamanaka, Chimzai Akimichi, Shikaku Nara under Tajiro Sarutobi. Finished Tsubachi, getting some good reactions, but also some disappointed ones also. These will be your teams until you all are either Chunin, one of you becomes a Chunin, or none of you become one at all. Stated Tsubachi with seriousness seen only when he's lecturing about the ninja arts and what they are for. So now that is all out of the way, you will have to wait a little bit for your senseis to get here to take you wherever they want you to meet. Said Tsubachi matter-of-factly. This got the class to start talking, and being excited 8-year-olds, they went straight into saying they got the best senseis because they're saying that it's no foreign orphan, an outsider and a civilian got Jiraiya of the Sannin as a sensei. Some even went as far as saying that they tricked the Hokage into giving them Jiraiya as their sensei. But hey, they are kids that don't know how the rules work. What these kids don't know is that it is this generation that will change the future for the better for the next 10 generations of ninja to come. 12 years later, 10th day of the 10th month, Kikbi attacks. It has been 12 years since their graduation day and becoming students of Jiraiya of the Sannin. It was after they became teammates that Kushina was kidnapped by Kumo Ninja because of her special chakra. She left behind a trail of her hair for people to follow and find her. The only person out of hundreds of ninja, only one person was able to find her, and that was Minato Namikaze. He found her because he thought her hair was beautiful. It was after that Kushina Uzumaki fell in love with Minato Namikaze, secretly Senju whom no one knows about, and later married him. Minato also at the age of 18 became the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha over Orochimaru. Now we find ourselves with them in their home in one of the civilian neighborhoods of Konoha with Hiruzen Sarutobi the Sandaime Hokage and his wife Bawako Sarutobi. Kushina, said Hiruzen. There's something important that I must explain to you about giving birth as a Jinchuriki. Continued Hiruzen. It was the same way with Mito-sama when she gave birth the Kikbi seal almost came completely undone. I apologize. But considering the worst case scenario we've decided to have you give birth inside a barrier, away from Konoha. Finished Hiruzen. I'll be there too. I do have to monitor the seal. Said Minato getting a smile and a nod from Kushina. Minato and Taji of the Anbu Black Ops will accompany you, as will my wife Bawako. Stated Hiruzen in a stoic manner. This must be done in the utmost secrecy. Kushina hummed her agreement. You will have bodyguards as well. They'll all be Anbu Black Ops directly assigned by me. Finished Hiruzen. Minato moved his hand over to Kushina's which got her attention. I'll go on ahead and make sure everything's ready. Stated Minato getting a nod and smile of affection from Kushina. And I shall guide you to the location. Said Bawako seriously. Kushina. Yelled Bawako getting Kushina's attention away from Minato. Oh, yes. Thank you, I appreciate it. Said Kushina with embarrassed smile on her face as Minato left the house closing the door behind him. Short time later, we should leave soon. Said Bawako outside the house a few hours later. Hi. Exclaimed Kushina as they started walking through the streets of the village. Soon after the start of their walk Kushina and Bawako ran into Makoto Uchiha, who was holding her son. Oh. Wow. You had a girl. Said Kushina excitedly. No, he's a boy. Replied Makoto back to Kushina with a smile. Oh what a little cutie. Said Kushina. Hi there little guy, what's your name handsome? Asked Kushina giggling at how cute the baby was. That's Sasu-kun. Said Makoto while smiling down at her son also getting Bawako's attention with the name. Oh he was named after the father of Sandaime-sama then, was he? Asked Bawako. Yes, so he will grow up and be a strong splendid shinobi. Said Makoto. You're due pretty soon too aren't you Kushina-chan? You ought to start thinking about baby names as well. Question then stated Makoto with a smirk on her face towards her friend. Actually started Kushina with a finger raised and smiling with her eyes closed. I've already decided, we're going to call him Naruto. He'll be classmates with little Sasu-kun here, I hope you two get along. Stated Kushina rubbing Sasuke's head affectionately while smiling happily and giggling a little. Then Kushina got a dark aura around her head and asked Makoto, by the way, does it really hurt like they say? Questioned Kushina. Makoto stared at her for a second, then said with a smirk, wow, so there's actually something that scares you. Shocking. She said with a laugh. It was after this that Bawako started to drag Kushina away saying, come, let's go Kushina. Yes ma'am. Replied Kushina laughing a little. The details of your birthing are supposed to secret remember. Until we get to our location we must avoid all contact with anyone including friends. Stated Bawako seriously getting a yes ma'am. From Kushina and an embarrassed smile. Sorry about that. She continued. Also, although we will be outside the village this is to remain covert so when your labor pains start do not cry out understand. Exclaimed Bawako as serious as she could. Oh, yes ma'am. Replied Kushina. A few hours later. Ah. It hurts Databane. Ah. Yelled out a pained Kushina who was in labor. In the cave with a barrier surrounding them while Kushina gives birth. I've never seen Kushina-chan in so much pain before that she's cried out like this. Said Minato with worry in his voice. Is she really going to be okay? He asked with more concern. Hi, she's going to be fine now forget about that and just stay focused on the Kikbi seal. Ordered Bawako to Minato. Ah. Screamed out Kushina in more labor pains. Okay, but she's so started Minato. You're the Yondaime Hokage Minato. Now act like it and get a grip. Most men would have dropped dead from such pain long ago. But women are much stronger. Exclaimed Bawako to Minato trying to assure him. Inside the seal, the Kikbi was trying to get out as Minato was using his chakra to hold it back in the seal. Hey he's so strong, the Kikbi is writhing to get out. Thought Minato, hang in there Kushina-chan. Yelled Minato. Naruto come out. Outside the cave and barrier a figure in a dark cloak with an orange mask with stripes on it was at work killing the Anbu protecting the cave from the outside. After he finished he started moving toward the surrounding cliff. As he walked to the cliff he walked right through the rock like it was tangible. Back inside the cave things were looking up. I can see the head now. Stated Bawako to Minato and Kushina. You're almost there, Kushina. Just hang in there you're doing great. Said Taji. While this was going on the Kikbi was still trying to get out. Naruto. Hurry up. Come out. Yelled Minato. You stay in Kikbi. Continued Minato. It was a very tense moment with Minato trying to keep the Kyuubi back and Kushina pushing to give birth to Naruto. Then within a minute or two there were the sounds of a baby crying filling the air of the cavern. "Hot water now!" exclaimed Bawako urgently. "Got it," replied Taji. All was silent besides baby Naruto crying. Kushina started crying tears of joy because she knew that her baby was here finally after 10 months. "He's really here," said Minato quietly. Minato started to cry tears of joy, also happy that he was a father now. "She did it. I'm a father," exclaimed Minato happily. "Hi, you have a healthy baby boy, Minato," said Bawako with smile on her face as she walked towards Kushina. "Naruto," said Minato happily as Bawako walked close to him with baby Naruto in her hands as he tried grabbing Naruto. "Hands off," said Bawako sternly. "Mother first. Father second," stated Bawako matter-of-factly. "So Naruto-kun, we finally meet," said Kushina between breaths. "Now, you will have more time later," said Bawako. Now my child," Bawako said trying to calm baby Naruto down. While this was going on, Minato put a comforting hand on Kushina to reassure her before speaking. "Kushina, are you feeling alright now?" questioned Minato to Kushina. "I'm okay," replied Kushina back to Minato with smiles on both of their faces. "Thank you," said Minato quietly to Kushina. "Minato," replied Kushina with a smaller happy smile and tears of joy running down her face. "Alright," said Minato. "Now I realize what you've just been through, but we need to reseal the Kyuubi." It was at that moment that there was a piercing scream running through the cavern. Minato looked over to see Bawako and Taji fall over dead from an unknown masked assailant. "Bawako-sama, Taji," yelled Minato looking at the masked assailant who just killed Bawako and Taji and was holding his son captive. "Yondaime Hokage, Minato," said the masked man, "step away from the Jinchuriki or else this child will die in its first minute." He continued. There was a stare down between them both as Minato thought, how the hell did he get past the barrier? Who is he, thought Minato as he prepared to attack the masked man holding his son. But while this was going on, the seal on Kushina hold the Kyuubi back was deteriorating at a fast rate without the help from Minato repairing the seal, which was causing Kushina tremendous pain and to scream. "Kushina-chan," yelled Minato with a lot of concern for his wife. "No, the Kyuubi seal is," thought Minato. "Get away from the Jinchuriki. Don't you care about what happens to the brat?" said the masked man as he pulled out a kunai and held it to Naruto's throat. "Wait please. Just stay calm," pleaded Minato to the masked man hoping he can see reason. "Speak for yourself." "I am as calm as can be, Minato," said the masked man as he threw Naruto up into the air and went to stab him with the kunai in his hand and getting a yell from Kushina. "Naruto," yelled Kushina as she watched her child be thrown up into the air and the masked man launch at him with the kunai in hand only to see Minato use his Hiraishin no Jutsu to catch Naruto before he can be stabbed. "Leave it, the Konoha no Kairoi Senkm yellow flash of the leaf." "But what about the next one?" said the masked man while doing a half hitsuji ram seal, which ignited explosive tags on the bottom of the blanket covering Naruto. "Minato-kun." "Naruto," yelled out Kushina as she saw the explosive tags and watched them explode. But before the explosive tags went off, Minato Hiraishin to a safe house that he had set up for such occasions. "Thank goodness Naruto wasn't injured," stated Minato with relief. But he felt pain in his right leg, so he looked down and saw that a wooden shrapnel was lodged in his leg. "He forced me to use the Hiraishin no Jutsu. His target was Kushina and he succeeded in separating us," thought Minato as he pulled out the wooden shrapnel from his leg and flung it into the air with one last thought before flashing away again. "Got to hurry." He soon arrived at a new location which is most likely his and Kushina's house of residence. While that was happening on the outskirts of Konohagakure no Sado, the masked man took Kushina to a secluded location and bound her in seals to hold her still. "Alright, what do you want?" asked Kushina while panting, trying to hold back the Kyuubi with what strength she could without losing consciousness. "I'm going to extract the Kyuubi from you and destroy Konoha," stated the masked man with his reply to Kushina's question. "No, you can't," said Kushina with a look fear and shock on her face. Minato's Jiken Ninjutsu space-time ninjutsu allows him to move instantly between locations that are marked with jutsu formulas, stated the masked man. "Those markings are incorporated into the sealing formula. That way Minato can protect you at all times, but he's far away now. The Kyuubi seal has weakened due to childbirth. Do you know how long I have waited for this moment?" The masked man finishes. Safe house. Back at the safe house, Minato puts Naruto down in a bed specially made for him. "You'll be safe here," said Minato. "Naruto, please be patient, okay? I have to go and rescue your mother right now." Unknown location with Kushina. In the location Kushina is in, the masked man finally revealed his eye that is visible through the hole in his mask, which revealed the fabled Sharingan. With his Sharingan he went into Kushina's seal. "It's you," said the Kyuubi as if knowing who the masked man was. It was then that the fox was put into a genjutsu by the masked man. Which when the fox was put under the genjutsu the Sharingan appeared within the irises of its eyes. When that happened the seal degraded even more, releasing the fox from the fabricated mass of stone that it was attached to by chains of chakra. On the outside of the seal a chakra cloak surrounded Kushina, taking the form of a two-tailed fox, with the seal completely open and Kushina's eyes rolled back into her head. The masked man put his hand in a half-ram seal and then said, "Come on out, Kibi." And with that the fox was released from the seal into the world for the first time in over 60 years. Ooh, howled the fox into the night. With that the chakra cloak left Kushina and she fell to the ground in a heap. "Good, now we will head to Konoha no Sado," said the masked man with a hint of glee in his stoic attitude. Wait," said Kushina quietly as she slowly was able to get up on her hands and knees, getting the masked man's attention. "You Uzumaki are just amazing. You don't die right away when the bijk is extracted," stated the masked man. With that statement the Kikbi slowly turned its eyes to Kushina. "You were the Kikbi's Jinchuriki. So I will let you die by his hand," said the masked man as the fox completely turned and swung his massive paw-like hand down at Kushina's downed form. The fox looked expectantly, but Kushina was no longer there. He looked up and with a flash Minato was standing on top of a tree with Kushina in his arms bridal style. "You really are quick as a flash," said the masked man to Minato. "But you're too late," he finished. Looking up into the tree Minato and Kushina are in. "Minato Naruto, is he alright then?" asked Kushina through labored breaths. "Yes, he's fine. He's in a safe place for now," said Minato with a nod. "Good. Minato, that masked man is with the Kikbi, they're heading to the village." "Stop them," stated Kushina through her labored breathing. With that Minato went into his Hokage mode and flashed away with Kushina in his arms. He flew away. That's fine, let's get to Konoha no Sado," said the masked man with a smirk hidden beneath his mask. With Kushina and Minato at the safe house. When Minato flashed away from the Kikbi and the masked man he arrived with Kushina in his arms at the safe house that Naruto is currently in. Minato moved over to Naruto with Kushina in his arms which got her attention. "Well, why?" she asked. "Never mind, just be with Naruto," said Minato while setting Kushina down next to Naruto. She stared at Naruto with tears welling up in her eyes, while Minato had a solemn look on his face. "Naruto," said Kushina as she lightly hugged him close to her. When she did that Minato solidified his resolve, he walked over to the wardrobe and opened it. On the inside was a white HAORI high-collared trench coat with red flames the bottom and the kanji for Yondaime Hokage on the back. He reached in and grabbed it and slipped it on. "Thank you Minato, and good luck," stated Kushina still holding on to Naruto. "I'll be right back," said Minato in a voice that showed why he was the Hokage. Konoha, in the village of Konoha, it was a typical night, people out and about having fun, cats out prowling and people out drinking at bars, enjoying being around their family and loved ones not knowing of what's to come upon the village. They were all ignorant of that fact but still continued to have a good night. Walking down the center of Konoha we find Kakashi Haddock and Mido Guy. "Ugh, look. Why don't we just do rock paper scissors again?" asked Kakashi talking to the ever-eccentric Mido Guy. "Oh, come on, there must be something more exciting we can do. And you call yourself my rival," stated Guy as eccentrically serious as possible. "We have to get an early start tomorrow, so let's just take a pass on tonight," stated Kakashi with an eye smile. "The mission is no excuse. I have all this pent-up energy inside me, so there's no better time than right now for some really rigorous training, honest to kami discipline, and hard work will lead us to success in future missions," stated Guy trying to get Kakashi to train with him in his eccentric training. Noticing Kakashi stop, Guy moved in front of him and said, "Are you even listening to me?" "Forget about that for now," said Kakashi. "Do you sense something strange? As if there was suddenly a dark chill in the air?" questioned Kakashi, his recent years in Anbu kicking in. "The only thing that's chilly is your attitude. You must be more hot-blooded," yelled Guy in his unique eccentric way at Kakashi's blatantly casual attitude. Elsewhere in Konoha, in other parts of the leaf, other people were sensing the imminent chill in the air that came from no Where from what they know of. At the Uchiha compound, an Uchiha by the name of Itachi, Mikoto Uchiha's firstborn son, was watching his younger brother Sasuke outside on the outdoor hallway looking at the moon. "I feel something omens," said Itachi in worry. This got Sasuke to start crying because of the same feeling that Itachi felt. There, it's okay," stated Itachi trying to calm his brother down. "What a this strange feeling. Of all the times for mom and dad to be out," thought Itachi. "Don't cry Sasuke. No matter what happens your big brother will protect you, I promise you that," stated Itachi to Sasuke with a small smile on his face. The Sandaime Hokage, who is in his office at home, also felt the disturbance. He grunted and blew out smoke from the pipe he is smoking at the moment. He looked out his window at the full moon that was hanging in the air. "It can't be," he said with no emotion in his voice. Edge of the village. At the edge of the village in a quiet neighborhood, the man in the mask that released a kickbee from Kushina landed on the ground in an alley. He slowly looked from his crouched position with a glint in his Sharingan eye while raising his hand and yelling out, "Uchiha no Jutsu." In a huge cloud of white smoke the size of the Hokage monument, the Kickbee no Kitsune was finally summoned to the leaf. The potency of the fox's chakra started to blow civilians and ninja alike away, along with the surrounding buildings. "Is that said a civilian?" "No way, it's the Kickbee," yelled the same civilian. With that, the other civilians in the area started to run away as fast as they could. "Oh Kickbee," yelled the masked man, which caused the Kickbee to start destroying the village with every fiber of its being. It was crushing and blowing away buildings with its breath, killing civilians and ninja. Back with the Sandaime, Hokage and Anbu appeared in his office. "Sandaime-sama. It's the Kickbee. The Kickbee is inside Konoha," stated the Anbu to the Sandaime. "Hi, I know that. I'll go restrain him, you and the others go protect all the people of the village," ordered the Sandaime. "Hi," said the Anbu following orders. Was Kushina's seal broken? "We failed even with all the safeguards we put in place, Bawako," thought the Sandaime. Throughout the village, the older Jumnin were ordering the younger Jumnin, Chiknin and Genin to evacuate the civilians and get out themselves. The shinobi and Kunoichi were attacking the fox the best they can. But with it being a chakra construct, it doesn't do much if at all any. The commanders were ordering the other ninja to attack the best they can to hold the fox off till all of the civilians were out. Up on the Hokage monument, Minato flashed to the tip of the highest point on his own carving, dressed in his Haori. He looked up and saw all the damage the fox has already done to the village and thought, "As Hokage, I must protect the village, my family. This is what I have to do right now." With a seriously calm face only a Hokage can have. "I won't let you destroy my home." The fox in the meantime continued to destroy the village, but then stopped and turned his head towards where Minato was standing on his carved head. "So you've noticed me, huh?" asked Minato to himself. With that, the fox roared and started gathering and condensing chakra into an orb, most commonly known as the Bij Dama-tailed beast ball, and shot it at Minato, destroying more of the village in the process. "I won't let you do this," said Minato as he went through hand seals, creating a barrier that had his Horatian formula incorporated into it. When the Bij Dama reached the barrier, the formula expanded and encompassed it. Soon the ball of chakra was sent somewhere else outside the village with a gigantic explosion of power. "With this much power, I have to carefully choose where I redirect his attacks," thought Minato, looking at where the blast came from. Down below, people watched what the Yondaime Hokage did. "The jutsu that deflect the Kickbee's attack, that's a Jiken Kekkai space-time barrier," stated Shimza, the Akimichi patriarch. "It's Minato," said Shikaku Nara, the head of the Nara clan. "Alright, let's move in too," said the Sandaime, ordering people to move. "I've got to alert Sandaime-sama right away about what's going on," thought Minato, not noticing the masked man from before appear out of nowhere behind him until the last moment. Swinging behind him with one of his infamous tri-pronged kunai, Minato hit the man in the head and it went right through. The masked man grabbed Minato's wrist as his hand passed through it. "I'm your opponent," said the masked man. "And you're done for," he continued as he used his own Jiken Jutsu. Before he could finish, Minato flashed away from the masked man. He got away. "So fast. Next time I will take you a lot quicker as soon as we touch," stated the masked man, making the half-Itsuji seal. My attack passed right through him, and a moment later he made himself solid and tried to pull me inside of him, thought Minato. What was that jutsu? At that moment the masked man teleported to where Minato had landed, surprising him. "You shall not escape," said the masked man with amusement. "He uses a Jiken jutsu too." So that's how he was able to grab Kushina and move so quickly. He defeated the Anbu Black Ops assigned to Sandaime-sama, got past the highest level classified barrier, and knew the Kickbee seal is weakest during childbirth, thought Minato. Even more than that, he undid the Kickbee seal and tamed him. He slipped in and out of the village's barrier without triggering any alarms. As far as I know, there's only one shinobi that could do all that. Minato looked at the masked man and asked, "Are you Madara Uchiha?" questioned Minato. With that, the masked man took off his hood to fully show his mask. "No, that would be impossible, he is dead after all," stated Minato. "I wonder about that," said the masked man. "In the end, it doesn't matter who you are." "But why attack Konohagakure?" asked Minato. "What would you like to hear? I could say I did it on a whim, or that I planned it, or that it's for war, or rather it's for peace," stated the masked man while dropping a chain out of his sleeve. "Either way, he's not ordinary, he can control the Kickbee, his Jiken Jutsu surpasses both Nidaime-sama's and mine. And he's got some dangerous ideology. If I don't settle this now, we'll have even bigger problems than the Kickbee. I'd transport myself to the village, but he'll come to the battlefield with me, it'll be chaos. If he's anything like Madara, he can't keep the Kickbee under the Kuchiyas no Jutsu for too long." I have to entrust the village to Sandaime-sama and just take this guy down right here right now. Thought Minato, getting into a battle stance. Now that I've freed the Kikbi, there is no hope for any of you. Yelled the Madara wannabe while charging at Minato, who started to charge back. Minato lunged forward with his kunai passing right through Madara while the masked man had a chain trailing behind him. Minato ran into the chain and was almost captured but flashed away at the last moment to escape the chain. He arrived at a kunai close by while holding the half-Itsuji seal. My physical attacks have no effect on him. But he makes himself solid when he attacks me. I have to aim for a mutual strike precisely timed. But he knows that he's vulnerable when he attacks, and considering the time remaining on the Kikbi's Kuchiyus no Jutsu, he won't want a likely long battle neither. Whoever attacks an instant quicker than the other will win this battle. Thought Minato while the Madara wannabe was moving slowly back and forth. Then they charged at each other, with Minato throwing his kunai at the man's head and watching it pass through. The masked man was reaching for Minato at the same time. They were closing in on each other now. As soon as the kunai completely passed through the masked man's head with his hand only a few inches away from Minato's arm, Minato created a large Rasengan. Just as the masked man was about to touch Minato, he said, "I win." It was at that moment that Minato flashed to the kunai he threw through the man's head and slammed the Rasengan into the man's back in a split second. Amity flashed himself to his kunai. Thought the masked man in pain. "Duration level 2. Said Minato as the Rasengan ground deeper into the fake Madara's back, simultaneously planting a Hiraishin seal on his back and destroying the surrounding ground under the man. The man jumped out of the smoke, landing 20 feet away holding his arm as it disintegrated. "You got me. You really are a slippery one. I never should have let my guard down around you," said the masked man in anger that he had lost. At that moment Minato flashed to the seal on the fake Madara's back and stabbed him with a kunai in the stomach. Duration no jutsu, of course, he must have marked me somewhere. Thought the fake Madara. "The contract seal. Trying to separate the Kikbi from me?" Stated the fake Madara. "But the Kikbi is no longer yours," exclaimed Minato triumphantly. In the village, the Kikbi let howl at finally being freed from the Sharingan control Genjutsu as the Sharingan disappeared from the fox's eyes, reverting back to his slit eyes. Even though the fox was no longer being controlled, he still continued attacking the village, destroying and killing wherever his paw-like hands landed. In one part of the destroyed village, one Iruka Yamino was with his mother and his father Tsubachi Yamino. "Iruka, are you alright?" asked Kaiko, Iruka's mother. As soon as she finished speaking, she slumped forward into Iruka's arms. "Mom? What's the matter?" asked Iruka, alarmed at why his mother slumped forward. Then he noticed a cut that went across her back horizontally. "Dad. Look, it's Mom, she's been hit," yelled Iruka to his father, who was faced towards the Kikbi as it destroyed more buildings. "Why didn't you stay at the shelter, Iruka? Leave your mother to me. You hurry up and get out of here now," said Tsubachi. "No, Dad, I'm not just going to run away and leave you and Mom behind here. I'm going to stay and protect Mom," yelled Iruka to his father, trying to get him to let him stay. "Don't you dare push me, son. It's a parent's duty to protect their children," yelled back Tsubachi, trying to get his son to see reason, even though Iruka didn't want to. A little ways away on top of a building stood the Sandaime Hokage with a platoon of shinobi from Anbu to the regular Jimnin. "We have to protect the village. We need to drive the Kikbi outside of the village walls," ordered the Sandaime Hokage to the ninja behind him. "Hi," was his reply. "Buy me some time so I can ready my jutsu. Do not let up the attack," said the Sandaime, giving his last order. "Hi, Sandaime-sama," was his reply. And with that, the ninja took off to attack the Kikbi with all they had. The fox started to knock the ninja out of the air while they jumped to throw kunai with explosive tags. Hiruzen, in the meantime, bit his thumb to draw blood. He swiped the blood on his palm and went through the necessary hand seals. "Kuchiyus no jutsu," yelled the Sandaime. "Monkey King Enma." With a puff of smoke, the king of monkeys appeared in all his glory. "The Kikbi So the seal was broken," stated Enma, looking at the Kikbi as it howled at being attacked. "We'll drive it from the village with the adamantine staff," said Hiruzen to Enma. "Henge transformation, gotcha," exclaimed Enma as he hinged into a big staff-like weapon and flew right up into the air right into Hiruzen's hands. "Now Enma, let's go," exclaimed Hiruzen. "Hi," replied Enma. "Extend," yelled Hiruzen with his palm out, watching the Enma extend towards the fox. With a mighty roar from the fox as Enma in his staff form pushed him out of Konoha, breaking one of the surrounding walls in the process. "But it has been driven out of the village. Now keep it one after another," stated the Sandaime, watching all the shinobi and Kunoichi attack the fox. "Minato, where are you?" thought Hiruzen. "But Minato, you're worthy of your title, Yondaime Hokage. Injuring me and separating the Kikbi from me, but he will be mine one day," stated the masked Madara. "I shall rule this world, there are plenty of ways to do it," he finished while using his Jikin Jutsu to disappear. Even his tone, he's not joking around. thought Minato as he contemplated what the man said. Back in Konoha, Ruoir. Howled the fox, swatting at the ninja attacking it and crushing them. Hold the attack, all of you, wait for the Yondaime Hokage. Yelled a random Jonin. One of the ninja that were knocked out of the air was Tsubachi Yamino. Haruka, said Tsubachi quietly before dying. A few hundred feet away Haruka saw the whole thing and yelled, "Let me go, my mom and dad are still fighting back there." As ninja carried him away from the battlefield. In the woods farther away from the battlefield, a group of young shinobi and kunoichi were surrounded by older Jonin. "Listen up. You younger ninjas, stay away from the Kikbi," stated a red-eyed man talking to the younger ninja. What do you mean?" questioned a young woman also with red eyes. "This is domestic trouble, not a war against other villages. There's no need for all of you to put your lives on the line for this," replied the red-eyed man. "You've got to be kidding," yelled the red-eyed girl. "Stop it, Kurenai, just calm down," said a random shinobi standing next to the women now named Kurenai. "You are also a ninja. You aren't going to live forever, you know, but my daughter, you're a woman too. Bequeath a will of fire on my future grandchildren, please make that your oath to me, your father, for I do believe in you," said the red-eyed man with a small smile on his face, shocking Kurenai to her core. In the location on the Hokage monument Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage appeared on top of his own carving. He looked out over the village towards the Kikbi and thought, "This is bad. He's going to do that again," said the Sandaime from the ground after he fell onto a knee trying to catch his breath. "Sandaime-sama," yelled a close-by shinobi who ran towards the Sandaime. Back on the Hokage monument, Minato saw that the Kikbi was charging up another Bijigdama. With that he started to go through the hand seals required for a summoning. Uchius. Yat Ikuzushi no Jutsu summoning. Food cart destroyer. And with that Gamabunta, chief of the Toads, appeared above the Kikbi, no Kitsune landing on top of him with Minato on the Toad's head. "Is that," said the Sandaime with a shinobi standing next to him finishing for him. "The Yondaime Hokage," yelled that ninja. "I shall rule this world," was Minato's thoughts of what the fake Madara said. "Kushina. Forgive me," was Minato's last thought before yelling down to Gamabunta. "Hold the Kikbi just for a little while longer. I'll give it my best. But that's going to be tough even for me," said Gamabunta, forcing the fox down to the ground. "I'm going to need a lot of chakra to transport such a large object away," said Minato to himself. With that, Minato built up his chakra to get the amount he needed to transport the fox away, which was currently still building up the Bijigdama. Just as the fox closed his large maw over the ball of chakra, he was whisked away from the battlefield by Minato. "Minato. He transported the Kikbi with him," said the Sandaime in shock of what his successor did. "Over there," yelled one ninja pointing in the horizon at the large ball of light caused by the Bijigdama exploding. With Minato and the fox, where the fox appeared is a now destroyed house that looked like it was beautiful just before the arrival of the fox and his Bijigdama. A short ways away Minato appeared carrying his son, Naruto, and his wife Kushina, panting while crouched because of the amount of chakra he used to transport the fox with his Hiraishin no Jutsu. "I must erect a barrier now," said Minato the thought, "but I don't have much chakra." "I can still do it, Minato," stated Kushina while looking at Minato. She then concentrated on her chakra with a bit of effort, but soon chains made out of chakra shot out of Kushina's back in 5 different directions. They burrowed under the ground and wrapped themselves around the Kikbi and made a net around them so no one can get in. "Kushina," yelled Minato as he watched his wife cough up blood and making baby Naruto start crying. "Woke you up, huh?" "Sorry, Naruto," stated Kushina through labored breaths, getting Minato to worry about her. "Kushina," said Minato looking at Kushina. "I'll take the Kikbi with me to my death. Because that way we can reduce the interval between now and when Hiri emerges again," said Kushina, tightening the chains more around the fox. "It's all I can manage now with the little chakra I have left, but I will be able to save you both. So thank you for everything you've done," stated Kushina with a sad but true smile on her face. Naruto, who obviously doesn't know what's going on because he is just a baby, started sniffling a little bit with tears at the corners of his eyes. "Kushina, you're the one. It was you who made me the Yondaime Hokage, you made me a man, and you made me this baby's father," and stated Minato in sadness that Kushina was thinking like this about sacrificing herself. "Oh, Minato, please don't give me that sad look. I'm happy because you love me, and what's more, today is the birthday of our beautiful child. But most of all, if I were imagine me alive and our future, the 3 of us together as a family. I can't really picture us just being anything but truly happy," said Kushina while Minato took her words in stride and started to cry. "I guess if I were allowed just one regret, I wish I could have seen Naruto all grown up. I wish I could have seen." Kushina tried to finish but was interrupted by Minato. "Kushina. There's no need for you to die in order to kill the Kikbi, preserve what little chakra you have for your reunion with Naruto," stated Minato to Kushina. "I'm going to seal the rest of your chakra inside Naruto, it'll be part of an Haki no Fkin 8 trigram seal, and then I will take the Kikbi with me." Since I'm not a Jinchuriki, I will have to use the Shiki FKJIN dead demon consuming seal. Stated Minato with conviction. Well, the fox was looking at Minato with contempt. You can't, if you cast it then you'll try to say Kushina, but Minato cut her off. And there's one other thing. I'm only going to seal half of the Kikbi. It's physically impossible to seal this much power. But it's also strategically unwise. If you take the Kikbi with you, there will be no Jinchuriki till here emerges. This will upset the balance of power between the Bijk. With the Shikifjin, we can at least seal away half of the Kikbi forever. And the other half of the fox I'll seal it inside Naruto, with the Haki no Fukin. Said Minato, thinking about the future and what Jiraiya told him about the child of prophecy. I know what you're going to say, but remember what Jiraiya-sensei said about world upheaval. And also the calamities that would accompany it. I've become convinced of two things today. First, that masked man who attacked you would bring catastrophe to the world, and second, the one who will stop him is this child. This infant, whose godfather is Jiraiya-sensei, he will open up the future as a Jinchuriki. I know it, somehow I'm sure of it. Finished Minato while looking back and forth between Naruto and Kushina. But Minato, said Kushina as the Sandaime Hokage arrived to the scene, to Minato already going through hand seals for the seal after he put Naruto on the ground. Shikifjin yelled out Minato as the Shinigami death god appeared in its spectral form of long white robes, white hair, ashy skin, with a tantrum in its mouth and beads wrapped around its wrists, with Minato's soul crucified behind him in front of the Shinigami. Let's believe in him, after all this child is now our son. Stated Minato to Kushina. Over on the other side of the barrier stood the Sandaime and Enma the Monkey King. Those signs don't tell me, asked Enma. Yes, it's the Shikifjin. Replied Hiruzen in sadness that his successor has resorted to that jutsu. After I have completed this seal, I'm going to seal your chakra inside of Naruto too. You won't have much time, but I want you to help him try to control the Kikbi's power as a Jinchuriki. Stated Minato with conviction and determination. But he's our son, Minato. TCH, which is exactly why I don't want him to bear such a heavy burden. Exclaimed Kushina. And tell me why use the Shikifjin. So it's just so I can meet Naruto when he's grown up, especially if it's going to be for a short time. Then there's no need for you to die. I'd rather you stay with him and watch over him. I just don't understand why it has to be this way. Why does Naruto have to be sacrificed for the balance of power among the Bijk, for his nation, for his village? Why do you have to sacrifice yourself at all, just for me please? Exclaimed Kushina as she started to sob. To forsake one's nation and one's village is exactly the same as forsaking one's own child. Your very own homeland was destroyed, so you should know that. A harsh life awaits those without a land to call their home. Stated Minato as serious as he can get in a situation like this. Besides, our family are ninja. Finally, even if I were to live, I could never be a substitute for you. Said Minato as he crouched right in front of Kushina. You won't have much time with him, but there's something only you can tell Naruto. Something that I just can't, that's a mother's role. I'm not doing this just for you, I'm doing it for Naruto. Finished Minato as he picked up baby Naruto. I'd die for my son, that's my duty as his father. Minato and Kushina stared at each other, seeing if the other would give up their resolve. While on the outside of the barrier, Kushina erected Hiruzen was testing it to see if he could break down, but discovered that it's impossible. Sandaime-sama. What's wrong? Said a ninja that just arrived at the scene. It's no good, we can't get in any closer, this barrier is preventing the Kikbi from escaping. It seems the two of them are planning to take care of the Kikbi all by themselves. Stated the Sandaime to the other ninja present. Inside the barrier, the Shinigami's hand went through Minato's soul, and from there it traveled out of his body and sped towards the Kikbi. Damn you, Yondaime Hokage. Roared the fox at Minato, taking half his chakra. Seal. Yelled Minato as the chakra was pulled away from the fox and pulled into Minato's gut with a swirl-like seal, with 8 lines of calligraphic writing sprouting from it. My body is going numb, can't believe how heavy his chakra is. Thought Minato as he received half of the fox's chakra. Damn you. Repeated the fox to Minato. It is the Shikifjin after all, I can't believe he used it. Stated the Sandaime watching the fox shrink. The Kikbi is still alive though, couldn't he seal all of it away? It appears smaller, but said one of the ninja that accompanied the Sandaime as Minato summoned an altar. Alright, now for the Haki no Fukin. I'll seal the rest of the Kikbi inside Naruto. Said Minato, putting Naruto on the altar. The ritual altar, he's planning on sealing me up again, not inside that baby. Said the Kikbi. Kushina, who watched Minato put Naruto down, tried to move towards him and Naruto, but as soon as she started moving, she started coughing up more blood. Kushina, are you okay? Yelled Minato as he started running towards her. But at that moment when the fox saw Minato move away from Naruto, he thought he had an opportunity to stop himself from being sealed again, so he struck forward. There you are. Roared the fox as he struck out at Naruto with his clawed hands. Minato and Kushina saw this and did what all parents would do, they both moved their bodies right in front of the claw that would have killed Naruto. The claw only coming to about 4 inches away from little Naruto, a drop of his parents' blood landing on his little chest. "I said I was his father, dying for him is my duty," stated Minato to Kushina as he looked at her. "Yes, but I'm his mother, it's mine too," replied Kushina. On the outside of the barrier, Hiruzen had a hard time making out what was going on, but figured it out. "There's a child in there too," stated the Sandaime. "Yes, and they saved it," said one of the accompanying ninja. "Why you?" yelled the fox, enraged at not being able to kill its next host. "I think this may be the first time that I've lost an argument, I guess it proves just how serious you are about doing this," Kushina told Minato. "I thank you, Kushina," said Minato, wiping blood off his chin onto his palm, then going through hand seals. "Kuchius no jutsu." In a poof of smoke, a toad that looks like an accordion. "Ah, the Kikbi," yelled the toad before looking at Minato. "And Yondaime Sama too, what is going on here?" questioned the toad before receiving an answer from Minato. "Iratora, I will give you the sealing formula's key. When I'm done, take it to Jiraiya-sensei to store it," stated Minato to the now named Jiratora. "So that's it. Minato plans to make his own child the Kikbi-Jinchuriki to save the village," exclaimed the Sandaime on the outside of the barrier, finally understanding what was going on inside the barrier. "I confirm I received the key. Alright, I'm off now," said the toad, disappearing in a poof of smoke. "And now we're safe," said Minato as the Shinigami licked the tent blade it pulled out of its mouth. Kushina. "I'm not going to last much longer, I'll start the Haki no Fukin right now. I still want to put some of my chakra in Naruto, we won't see him for quite a while, so let's tell him what we want to say," Minato said to Kushina, inciting her to start speaking to Naruto. "Naruto, don't be a picky eater, just eat a lot so you grow up big and strong, and make sure you bathe every day, and you stay warm too. Also, don't stay up too late, make sure you get plenty of sleep, don't forget to make friends as well. You don't need a ton of them, okay, just a few is fine, as long as they're ones you can really trust. And your mom wasn't very good at this, make sure you study hard and learn your ninjutsu. Always remember everyone is good at some things and not so good at others. So even if something doesn't go well, don't get depressed, okay, when you're at the academy, respect your teachers and the other classmen. Oh, now this is important, regarding the 3 prohibitions of the shinobi. Be extra careful about lending and borrowing money, take your pay, put it in a savings account. No alcohol, not until you have aged too much, sake is bad for you, so practice moderation. And another prohibition is women. Remember, I am one, so I don't know too much about it, tch keep in mind this world is made up of men and women. And so, at some point you will notice girls, and that's normal, just be careful and don't fall for the bad ones. Just go out there and find someone that's like me. Oh, that reminds me. Speaking of the 3 prohibitions, you should be wary of Jiraiya-sensei databang," said Kushina with labored breaths. "Naruto, I'm sorry to say there will be plenty of hardships and painful times ahead. Thus be true to yourself, make sure to have dreams and the confidence to make those dreams come true. Oh Naruto, there's so much, oh so much more, there are so many things I wish I had time to pass on to you, so much more I want to tell you. I wish I could stay with you longer, I love you," finished crying Kushina to Naruto. "Minato, I'm sorry I used up your time," exclaimed Kushina to Minato, thinking he was mad at her for using up the time he had left. "No, it's alright. Naruto, my words to you, oh I guess your talkative mom said it all, Haki no Fukin," said Minato, and that was the end of his and Kushina's life and the beginnings of a legends. Konohagakure no Sato 1 week later. It has been a week since that night. A week since Konohagakure no Sato, otherwise known as the village hidden amongst the leaves, was attacked by the Kikbi no Kitsune 9-tailed fox. Many people, ninja and civilian alike, were killed that night, but Konoha's most tragic loss was that of the Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze. And because of that, the now reinstated Sandaime Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi was in a predicament. With the death of his successor, not only leaving his newborn son Naruto Uzumaki orphaned, but also a Jinchuriki. But this was not the only predicament. His Hiruzen's teammates, the councils, and his childhood best friend were being what all male Naras say everything is troublesome. Flashback, Hokage office 4 days ago. 3 days since the attack. 3 long days of disorder and mayhem, in which he was forced to take office again at the untimely death of his predecessor. 3 very long days of the most grueling and ancient tortures known to man were inflicted upon the old man, and he cursed Minato for making him take back this position he gladly gave up. What were these tortures forced upon the old Hokage, you ask? Of course it is the murderous meetings with a vicious bloodthirsty village council. Well, it was the civilians trying to get the power. The shinobi were still trying to see who was left in their ranks, seeking to grab power with the loss of their Yondaime Hokage, and the Sandaime had to rein in these fire-breathing demons to make sure they got nothing. Searching the law books and history of Konoha, he knew so well to make it impossible for them to get anything. And then there was the most heinous of terrors that sent a shiver down any cage's back. It came straight from the ninth circle of hell, and it stayed with them until death or relinquishment of office. Yes, it is none other than the dooming paperwork. He sighed, facing away from the mountains of paper that littered the office, his office once again, as he gazed out the window into the afternoon air to see his destroyed but recuperating village. Despite what many would think, he had not been glad to don the robes and hat of office again, but he knew Minato did the right thing. He wished so badly. The sky was the blue shade closest to the now past Senju eyes, and now it was made jealous by his son's eyes. Speaking of the boy, he wished so badly that he could hide him away from the world, protecting the heir of Minato and Kushina from the cruel world, but he couldn't. If he was anything like his parents, he would always be the center of attention and of course demand much socializing with others. But he couldn't very well put him into an orphanage because he knew he will be neglected after this meeting he has to go to. He knew he couldn't take care of him because the council would absolutely try to make sure he had as little contact with the child as possible, that much he was certain of. He needed to stay on the council's good side for now, even if they held no official authority, not only to protect his unsteady position, but to be able to protect the sun-kissed blonde-haired child. He couldn't give him to Jiraiya or Kakashi because that would draw too much attention to them from enemies outside the village and from within. He couldn't think of who to give the boy to protect him and raise him into a fine young man, or if he wanted to into a shinobi. Even, though that would be inevitable with him being a Jinchuriki. Then Hiruzen remembered Minato was adopted. So that would mean that he may have biological family on Minato's side still around. That gave the old Hokage an idea that would rock the foundations of Konoha and the elemental nations for many years. Panther? Said Hiruzen. Which caused an Anbu with a panther mask to appear on one knee waiting for her orders. Fetch Dr. Asagi for me. Ordered Hiruzen. Hi, Hokage-sama. Replied the female Anbu member sunshining to the hospital. It took all but 5 minutes for the Anbu to return with the doctor both in kneeling positions in front of their Hokage. You asked for me, Hokage-sama? Questioned Asagi. Yes, I did. You may leave, said Hiruzen to the female Anbu member who left right away. I asked you here because I have a mission for you. Started Hiruzen getting Asagi's attention. What type of mission, Hokage-sama? Questioned Asagi. This mission will be classified an S-rank secret. I want you to do a blood test on Minato Namikaze. Stated the Sandaime seriously getting a shocked look from Asagi. May I ask why, Hokage-sama? Asked Asagi. Hiruzen got up from his desk and walked to the door and motioned for Asagi to follow him. They exited the office to the hallway and walked down the corridor till they reached a room guarded by Anbu, one with a Hitsuji mask and one with a Rick mask. The Hokage nodded to the two Anbu who bowed to him as he opened the door and walked in with Asagi right behind him. When they were in the room, Asagi noticed it was a nursery, and in the middle of the room up against a far wall was a bassinet that had a small blonde child in it sleeping. Asagi also sensed that there were 4 other additional Anbu in the room guarding the young child. Hiruzen walked over next to Naruto and said, "This child is Naruto Uzumaki, the new Jinchuriki of the Kikbi no Kitsune." Said Sarutobi, getting a nod out of Asagi, who already knew that from being the medic at the scene the night of the attack. "As you already know, he is the child of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, as you were running tests on him to see if he was healthy 3 days ago." Getting another nod out of Asagi. "What I want you to do is going to be an S-rank secret. I want you to run a test on Minato's blood and run it against any and all DNA samples possible in the Konoha medical database." Informed Sarutobi, getting a shocked look from Asagi. "But sir, the database is a collection of all medical records from around Hai no Kuni, which numbers in the millions." Stated Asagi, getting a nod from Hiruzen. "Yes, that is true, but I want you to only do Konoha's ninja database." Said Hiruzen, smirking with amusement, getting an embarrassed chuckle from Asagi as she rubbed the back of her head. "I knew that." Replied Asagi, getting an amused chuckle out the old Hokage. After that short stint of amusement, the Hokage and Asagi got serious once more. They both were looking at baby Naruto. Which caused a question to pop into Asagi's head. "Hokage-sama, may I ask why you want me to do this?" "I want you to do this because I believe one of Minato's biological parents are still out there in the world. And another thing is, I don't want and can't let Naruto be uncared for without someone around to protect him from the people in this village that will try to use him for their own goals." Dansm. Finished Sarutobi, looking at Asagi seriously, expecting a reply. With her Hokage's finished explanation, Asagi got a determined look on her face, bowed to him and said, "Hi, Hokage-sama. I will do my best to find out if young Naruto's grandparents are still alive, but it will take a few days to get through them all, sir." "That's fine. Now if you would excuse me, I have a meeting with the councils to tell them about Naruto and to listen to them bicker about everything." Said the Sandaime, motioning for one of his Anbu guards to pick up Naruto and bring him with. As soon as Hiruzen left the room, Asagi swore silently to Naruto that she would find his family at all costs and left right after her Hokage to complete her mission. Council chamber with Sarutobi. The walk to the council chambers was long and dark in his mind. Rubbing the bridge of his nose, he collected himself before having to go to yet another meeting, this time bringing news of Naruto to them. He had every viable speech ready, every loophole checked, and ready to answer any question they had. It would be the most prepared battle in his life. As he came close the magnificent building which at times is the home of the daemon of High no Kuni when he is here in Konoha he saw that his Anbu guarded separated two watching over baby Naruto had moved ahead to the chamber doors while two stayed behind to watch over him. Soon all them were guarding him once again, though one of the Anbu that was female Tori bird was holding a sleeping Naruto gently while rocking him back and forth silently, keeping baby Naruto calm and asleep. His lungs gasping for a little air when he shifted in Tori's arms before she continued in a slow pattern. The Hokage smiled gently, running a hand through the already formed small blonde spikes, and they were soft and silky despite their appearance. With a nod to the four Anbu, he headed into the room first, knowing other Anbu were well hidden for means of protection. The round table had already been filled with the shinobi clan heads, except the chairs of the Senju, Uzumaki, and Haddock, along with many other respectable Junin and prominent civilians that made up the village council, and Dansum the ex-Anbu commander. They all turned to him either bowing or nodding their heads to show full respect or at least some form of respect. He made his way to his chair and sat without any prompt with the four Anbu behind him, though the one with Naruto in her arms was more hidden than the other three. Sarutobi spoke gravely, "Not many of you know what really happened the night the Kikbi no Kitsune attacked. So I will give you the bare details." Minato-kun had no other choice than to seal the Kikbi into a human child, making the boy a Jinchuriki. As his dying request, the Yonde asked that everyone in Konoha sees this child as a hero because he was sacrificed to be the bearer in prison of the Kikbi, protecting us with his very life. But that Tori stepped forward, showing the room the blonde whisker-marked child. Gasps were heard around the room and then muttering. Then the opposition came. It came first, naturally, from one of the civilians. "Kill it now, before the demon breaks out." Many of the other council members agreed to this point, though several stayed silent, looking at the child with scrutinizing eyes, not so easily swayed by the emotions like their counterparts. The ninja in the room however stayed quiet. Many already knew who the boy was, the looks were a dead giveaway. And they knew who the boy's parents were, so that was another giveaway. One of the civilian councillors, a haggard elderly woman, turned to the silent ninja in the room mainly to their Hokage and asked in a voice that oddly quieted and gained everyone's attention. "What do you think? You are after all the experts on these things. We know nothing of these skills or what it takes to keep the demon secure in the boy's body." That actually shocked the shinobi that a civilian would come to them for an opinion in something they knew more about instead of making their rash judgments again. But even more shockingly was when Kizashi Haruno answered the woman matter of fact. "The boy is human, not the fox, and the seal will hold." The Yondaime would never place a faulty seal on a child. And as once being a shinobi and a long-time friend to Minato, I know that his seal mastery was the best. It rivaled, if not surpassed his own sensei, Jiraiya the Gamasenin. "The boy is the only reason we live at this very moment and we should honor the Yondaime's last wish and celebrate the rising of a hero." Finished Kizashi, getting nods of agreement and appreciation from the shinobi in the room. All the Sandaime Hokage could do was smile appreciatively at Kizashi and send him a nod of thanks. Kizashi nodded back to the Hokage with a small smile also on his face. But the happiness was drained from the shinobi of the room once Dansum decided to put his 2 cents in. "Hiruzen, I ask that you give the Jinchuriki to me so he can become a weapon for the village." Asked Dansum, who got glares from some shinobi and agreements from some of the civilians. Hiruzen looked at Dansum with blank eyes and a stoic face and said, "No. The boy will not grow up to be an emotionless weapon just for the good of the village as you will put it. He will grow up to make friends and have a happy life and be seen as the hero the Yondaime asked him to be," said the Sandaime seriously. Glaring at Dansum with a little bit of unrestrained rage. "Just to be clear. If anything in this meeting is spoken publicly, everyone here will be charged with treason," stated the Sandaime to everyone. The civilians were sweating a little at this. "You are all dismissed," said Hiruzen. Hanahagakure Hospital, November 25. It has been a month and a half since Asagi was assigned the mission to find the late Yondaime Hokage's biological family bloodline by testing his DNA against tens of thousands of shinobi and kinmoichi over the last 50 years who are alive or have died in recent years. When Asagi started the search, she started with the civilians who have become ninja 50 years ago and moved through to the shinobi clans year by year. So far she has made it through 49 years, which was during the first shinobi world war leading up to the second. Aligning with Minato Namikaze's date of birth. Some of the DNA samples that were stored were not stored properly, so they were deteriorating for quite some time before she found them. Though it was not much to ruin them, but it was enough to make it take longer to match the DNA samples up for the overall results of the tests. At the start she thought about looking at the results pinging on the computer that was scanning the genetics database, but decided to put it off till it was finished with the entire database. Now a month and a half later it is almost complete with only a few hundred more samples to go, which would only take up to an hour to finish. As the hour passed by, Asagi was getting excited, she didn't know why, but she had to guess it had to do with it almost being done, or that she would be able to figure out who her Yondaime Hokage's parents are. She could only guess. As the hour finished, the machine doing the test slowed to a stop. When it stopped, Asagi finally pulled the result sheet with all the results listed on it full of the matches. She started to look over it and noticed a consistency in the results. They all had the one gene that was the same. But two of them stood out the most. She looked through the list that was on the computer screen of those two DNA samples and was even more surprised and dumbfounded. She quickly got up and left the genetics laboratory of the hospital to go report to the Hokage of her findings. Hokage's office. Here is in Saratobi. The Sandaime Hokage thought that today would be a normal day. A normal day of doing paperwork and dealing with his advisors Hamura Medikado, Kahara Udatane, and Danzum Shimura. They became even more annoying than before he chose Minato as the next Hokage, especially now when it comes to the village's Yonchikiki, Naruto Uzumaki. A little over a month ago he ordered his best medic Nin Asagi, aside from Tsunade who isn't here at the moment, to run DNA tests to find out who his successor's parents are. As he continued his work on the paperwork he heard a few hurried raps on his office door. "Come in," said the Sandaime, taking a puff off the pipe in his mouth. As he was doing that, Asagi barged into the room, panting a little bit from running here, but also because she was excited. "Hokage-sama," said Asagi with a bow to her Hokage. "The DNA results have come in," she said a little bit too loudly in her excitement. The Sandaime had a surprised look on his face for a second, then let out a chuckle. That is wonderful news," exclaimed the Sandaime. "May I see the results?" With that, Asagi handed him the result sheet. Hiruzen looked over it and was absolutely dumbfounded with what he saw. He looked up at Asagi with a serious face and said with no emotion, "Is this accurate?" "Yes, Hokage-sama, the machine used to determine the DNA has an accuracy of 99% match rates. This is as accurate as it can get," stated Asagi with her own serious and emotionless voice. The Hokage looked at the list as he reread the two matches marked as highest percent match up for Minato's parents. It read maternal parent 99% match. Tsunade Senju, paternal parent 99% match. Jiraiya. This would explain why Tsunade left all those years ago and confirmed Hiruzen's suspicions all those years ago. As Hiruzen reread again and again, he also noticed that Jiraiya's genes had some marks that were identical to Tsunade's. But not only hers, all the people listed on here, he figured it was a clan trait, so to speak. But if it was a clan trait, why would Jiraiya have it? As Hiruzen scanned over the list some more, he noticed that Jiraiya's genes matched up to two other people on the list. One being, surprising enough, the Nidaime Hokage Tobirama Senju, and the other must have been Tobirama's illegitimate daughter. Which would explain why Jiraiya wasn't born into the Senju clan like Tsunade. As Hiruzen was finishing reading it again for a third time, he got a determined look on his face and said with authority and power, "Anbu." With that, a squad 4 Anbu captains were in charge of guarding him appeared in a kneeling position. "I am giving you all and your teams an A-rank mission to find Tsunade Senju and bring her back to the village on my orders. Search high and low for her, go." "Hi," said the Anbu captains, going to gather their teams for this mission. As soon as the Anbu left, Hiruzen bit his thumb and swiped it on his palm. Then started to go through hand seals. When he finished, he slammed his palm onto the floor of his office. "Ninm. Kuchius no Jutsu ninja art. Summoning jutsu." With a burst of white smoke, a small monkey appeared with a Konoha headband wrapped around its forehead. "What is your order, Hiruzen-sama?" questioned the small monkey with a slight bow. "I need you to go to Mount Mamboku and request to the Toad Elders to have Jiraiya return to the village as soon as he can," stated the Sandaime. "Hi, Hiruzen-sama, right away," said the little monkey as he disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Hiruzen then looked up to Asagi, who has stayed quiet till now, with a small smile. "You may leave, Asagi-san, thank you for your work, have some time off too. And don't forget, do not tell anyone of this till I talk to Tsunade and Jiraiya about this. Is that understood?" said the Sandaime to Asagi. "Hi, Hokage-sama," said Asagi with a bow and left the room. Hiruzen turned to the window and looked out to the far reaches of the village, admiring it along with the fall weather. This is going to be an interesting next couple of years for the village. Somewhere in Hai no Kuni 1 week later, in a casino somewhere in Hai no Kuni sat a blonde-haired woman in the style of two pigtails, wearing a green hori with the kanji for gamble on the back. This woman's name was Tsunade Senju, the granddaughter of the Shodaime Hokage, Hashirama Senju, and was also part of the Densetsu no Sannin legendary 3 ninja. As she was playing, she had an ominous feeling come over her, which was at the moment when she went and pulled the lever for machine down to start another spin. Not more than 30 seconds later, Tsunade got 3 straight money signs in a row that represented the casino's jackpot. As soon as she hit the jackpot, Tsunade started to frown deeply. She knew that something has happened or something is going to happen, so she quickly collected her winnings and left the casino to her hotel to collect her late lover's niece Shizune. As she reached her hotel and went up to her room, she opened the door. "Shizune," yelled Tsunade. "We are leaving." Shizune, who had been in the bathroom at the time, came out in only a bathrobe and looked at her master and said, "Hi Tsunade-sama." As she started changing into her traveling kimono. They soon finished packing 30 minutes later and were on their way to check out of the hotel and leave the town. As Tsunade was walking down the street, she stiffened a little when she felt the presence of 4 Nin-level chakra signatures close by. No doubt they were Anbu, because as she looked in the direction of the signatures, the ninja were well hidden. To stay hidden, she put an undetectable genjutsu around her and Shizune so they can escape. Her and Shizune quickly made their way out of the town on their way to the next one. Kuni hot water country. In the country of Kuni, a country famous for its hot springs and famous spas. One of Konoha's strongest ninjas sat peeking through a hole in one of the walls separating the male side of the hot springs and the female side. Jiraiya, if the Densetsu no Sannin legendary 3 ninja, was looking at all the naked women bathing in the waters hidden from public view, giggling like a little schoolgirl while jotting down notes in his notebook. He is also the author of the world-famous Icha Icha Paradise novel series and the not-so-famous Tales of an Utterly Gutsy Ninja. As he was doing that, a small toad appeared in a poof of smoke next him, croaking, waiting for Jiraiya to acknowledge him. Jiraiya looked at the small toad and sighed. "What is it?" Jiraiya asked the small toad. Who croaked then started to speak. "The elders received a message from the monkey clan requesting that you return to Konoha as soon as you can," croaked out the toad. Making Jiraiya wonder what his sensei wanted to urgently. "Okay, go tell Sarutobi sensei that I will be back in the village after I check on my spy network," said Jiraiya to the small toad. The small toad croaked in acknowledgement and then poofed away back to Mount Mamboku. Jiraiya turned back to his notepad with a small frown, thinking about what it could be that his sensei would want. But shrugged it off till he got back to the village within the next few months to a year. Outside the walls of Konohagakure no Sato 2 years later after message sent. In the distance, walking down the main road to Konohagakure no Sato, were 3 people, a man, a woman and a teenage girl. These 3 people were the Gama Sennin Jiraiya, Tsunade Senju the Slug Princess, and her apprentice Shizune Kan. But there was also one more child wrapped up in a bundle in Slug Sannin's arms, that child being her grandson Naruto Uzumaki. It has been a year and a half since Jiraiya was in the village after he found out some shocking news that gave him literally every emotion known to mankind and the reason he personally went after Tsunade. Flashback 1 year ago, 1 year after message sent. Hiruzen Sarutobi was sitting in his office doing his routine paperwork that he utterly despised when he felt a presence, then heard a knock on his window and turned to see Jiraiya standing there. He quickly beckoned him inside and retook to doing the paperwork on his desk. Jiraiya opened the window and hopped into the office with a cheesy grin on his face, while Hiruzen held a look bordering on no emotion and sadness. "How are you, old man?" asked Jiraiya with a happy tone that matched his grin. Sarutobi took a small glance at Jiraiya. "Sit," he said, pointing at the chair in front of his desk, which promptly made Jiraiya drop his grin into a serious expression while moving to the seat indicated. Sarutobi looked at Jiraiya and asked, "What took you so long to get here? You said you would have been back 6 months ago." Jiraiya looked Sarutobi in the eyes. "I was looking into a new group of shinobi that may be a problem in the future," replied Jiraiya. "But I also have a question for you, old man. What was so urgent that you wanted me here other than to fulfill my duties as the spy master of Konohagakure?" questioned Jiraiya with curiosity laced in his voice. He knew it was something serious and very important, but he did have a clue about what. Hiruzen looked at him with his hands held in front of his face and pipe hanging out of the corner of his mouth. "The reason I have asked for your immediate arrival per my request is because we have discovered information that was not privy to the village till before I sent for you," started Hiruzen as he looked at Jiraiya with a saddened look that made him look older. "From what we figured out through blood tests of the shinobi past and present, we were able to figure out many things that we otherwise would have never even been informed of. Because it was a clan secret that only the elders of the clan when it was still formed had information of but never let slip for your protection of enemies outside, but also inside the village." Jiraiya continued Sarutobi, looking at Jiraiya, who was confused about what his sensei was saying to him. "What are you on about, old man?" questioned Jiraiya, looking at Sarutobi with a confused look on his face. "What I am saying, Jiraiya, is you are part of a clan, the Senju clan to be exact. And that isn't the only thing, you also have a son," stated Hiruzen, looking Jiraiya in the eyes as they widened with surprise. "I have a kid. How come I didn't know about this? Who did I have a brat within the village? The only person I know of that I slept with in the village was Tsunade," replied Jiraiya as his eyes went wide with shock and disbelief as he looked at his sensei with his wide eyes. Then the gears in his head started to turn and he recalled the memories of Tsunade leaving for that mission all of a sudden for that undisclosed amount of time. while recalling that his eyes widened more in realization. SSHCW was pregnant when she left on that mission all those years ago, wasn't she? Asked Jiraiya, looking at Hiruzen with a serious look on his face. Hiruzen eyed Jiraiya for a minute or two, then sighed deeply. I had my suspicions when she mentioned something about getting away from you, but I didn't know for sure. Like I said, it was only recently that I found out about this, but that isn't the most surprising news. Said Hiruzen while smiling, getting Jiraiya's confused attention. Your son was really surprising when I saw who he was. Finished Hiruzen before handing Jiraiya a folder that said classified on the front. Jiraiya looked at it for a second, then looked closer at the name on the folder. His eyes widened and he let out a gasp and dropped the folder onto the floor. Jiraiya raised his eyes to look at his sensei with his still wide eyes. Min Minato W was my son? Questioned Jiraiya with tears prickling the corners of his eyes. Hiruzen looked at Jiraiya with a soft smile and said, yes, he was. Minato Namikaze the Yondaime Hokage was the son of Jiraiya Senju and Tsunade Senju and was the heir to the clan, but now it lies upon another. Said Hiruzen, getting a cheesy grin from Jiraiya, then a serious look. But you know why Tsunade never told me about him? I mean, I know I was young and still immature, but if I would have known about him then I would have straightened out to take care of him. Stated Jiraiya with some anger in his voice. Hiruzen thought this over and explained it to his dense and occasionally forgetful student. His age, Jiraiya. Look at his age. What was happening around the time he was born? Asked Hiruzen. Jiraiya did the math and blushed with embarrassment at forgetting the war at the time. It says in the folder that he was adopted right before the climax of the war by the Namikaze clan. But the orphanage that was there no longer stands and looks like it was burned to a crisp because of the war. So from that information alone I would assume that she went to retrieve Minato after the war but found the burnt out orphanage instead. That, adding already to the death of her brother and her lover during the war, must have sent her over the edge and made her leave the village and not tell you about him. For her, thinking Minato was dead gave her no reason to tell you. Sagely deduced Hiruzen about the information collected and adding it all together. Jiraiya went deep into thought after hearing that and did agree that if she learning of Minato's supposed death, then there would have been no reason to tell him. But it still hurt that she would do that to him and not tell him about it. Then he remembered something his sensei said a few minutes ago about an heir replacing Minato. Then remembering Minato with that red-haired woman Kushina Uzumaki, who was also the Jinchuriki of the Kikbi no Kitsune. Who named him their child's. What was his name? Naruto, after the character in his book that never sold well as godfather. Well, that will be weird. Being Naruto's godfather and grandfather would seriously confuse some people. What are we going to do, sensei? With Minato gaining enemies throughout the world, we can't say that Naruto is his kid, but we also can't come out and say that me and Tsunade are Minato's parents, either till the kid gets old enough and things have calmed down more here at home. Questioned Jiraiya, getting frustrated that things can't go smoothly like a normal family should go. Hiruzen closed his eyes and thought about what they could do and came to a conclusion that would suit Naruto the best it can, so he won't have to be lonely for the rest of his life. You are right, Jiraiya, but don't forget Minato also made young Naruto into the Kikbi Jinchuriki. Not only for the protection of the village, but also to protect Naruto himself. The villagers undoubtedly know about young Naruto being the Jinchuriki because of my tardiness to the situation, and those loose-mouthed chiknin with me from that night, along with my advisors, telling the entire council about it. So he will live an unhealthy, lonely life without a mother or father figure around to raise him. So I am going to ask, no, beg you to look after him, Jiraiya. He is going to need someone there for him with all the hate from the village he will receive. Finished saying Hiruzen with an urgent undertone to his voice. Jiraiya looked at him with determination in his eyes that spoke volumes than any words that muttered, I will, old man, he is my grandson after all. Said Jiraiya with a grin of happiness and joy. Also, Jiraiya, started Hiruzen, go find Tsunade and tell her about this discovery. I sent Anbu after her when I sent my monkey to you, but she avoided them and they haven't found a trace of her. You are the only one that can find her with your spy network. Take young Naruto with you to convince her to come home, he is the future of the Senju and Uzumaki clans. Finished Hiruzen with a serious look, but if you look closer you can see the traces of a small smile. Also, I will tell you about your parents when you get back and Tsunade is here. I will do that, old man. I will be back within the year with Tsunade, even if I have to drag her back kicking and screaming if I have to. Replied Jiraiya, getting up and moving towards the door, getting ready to head to the room where his grandson was surrounded by the Sandaime Hokage's most trusted Anbu, including one Kakashi Haddock. I will see you when I get back, sensei, and hopefully things will get better for us all. Said Jiraiya, waving behind him to his sensei, who just smiled and thought, good luck, Jiraiya, you are going to need it for when you run into Tsunade. Greater City 6 months later. It has been 6 months since Jiraiya left the Hidden Leaf village to go on his journey, looking for his long-lost teammate and hopefully soon-to-be lovers for the sake of their grandchild. Speaking of grandchild, Naruto Uzumaki was a nice wacky call to the duties of parenthood Jiraiya missed out on for his own son. Most nights young Naruto would sleep soundly and all through the night. But there have been some occasions where Naruto would not sleep at all and would cry for hours on end for no reason to Jiraiya at all. Though some nights are moody like this during the days, Naruto is the most well-behaved and quiet child he has ever had the experience at meeting. Naruto also seemed very curious with the world around him, as most toddlers are. During the third month of the travel, Jiraiya took some time to teach Naruto some things he should have started learning a little over 5 months ago, before he even arrived in the village. Like walking, which Naruto picked up and was very proficient at within the first week of him learning it. Soon after that he started teaching him how to speak. Jiraiya taught him how to say his own name and that Jiraiya was his Aji-san and that they were looking for his Naruto's Aba-chan so they can head home. Though Jiraiya wasn't expecting Naruto understand any of what he was talking about. That was all about to change the day they finally found Tsunade in one of the casinos. Jiraiya with Naruto all bundled up in his arms from the cold weather that recently gripped all of High no Kuni for the coming winter, were walking down the main drag of Crater City. The festival was the liveliest here, like with all villages that hold festivals like this. Jiraiya was looking for a good place to eat that would sweet him and give him some time to also feed Naruto before finding a hotel to rest before searching again for Tsunade. As Jiraiya looked around, he saw a restraint bar casino that caught his attention. He didn't know what it was, but this place drawing him in. It was like he needed to go in there, that there was something important there that was waiting for him. While his ninja instincts warned him that it could be something bad, he went anyway just to smother his curiosity. So he went into the restaurant and looked around. As he looked around, he didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but when he looked towards the back of the restaurant, he saw the very person he has been looking for the last few months. Tsunade Senju was sitting in the back of the restaurant taking a drink of sake while her apprentice looked on with great sadness in her eyes. Jiraiya looked on with a mix of emotions, the most prominent being anger. But schooled his emotions so not to rouse his chakra to the point of waking a sleeping Naruto. He started to move towards the back, dodging waiters and people alike. On his way there, Shizune at the right moment looked in his general direction and went wide-eyed in surprise, and if Jiraiya can see right, happiness. But Shizune also saw the look on his face also and looked at her master, fearful of what she might do if she notices Jiraiya. So she nudged her master anyway to get her attention. "Tsunade-sama," said Shizune, nudging Tsunade, getting a dirty look in response. "What is it, Shizune? Can't you see I am drinking here?" slurred Tsunade to her apprentice. "Yes, Tsunade-sama, but Jiraiya-sama is here," stated Shizune with fear in her voice with a little hope. But with those words, Tsunade looked like she sobered up a little and looked in the direction Shizune was, and sure enough there was Jiraiya moving in their direction. Tsunade was shocked that he was able to find her, but then again he was the spy master of Konoha, so it isn't really that surprising to her. "What are you doing here, Jiraiya?" slurred Tsunade, drunkenly standing up, pointing at Jiraiya, who just stared at her with seriousness that she only saw him have in a battle. Jiraiya arrived at their table and sat down next to Shizune across from Tsunade and stared at her before speaking. "Why?" questioned Jiraiya, making Tsunade looking at him confused along with Shizune. "Why? Because I want to know why you are here, you idiot. That's why," replied Tsunade, taking another swig of her sake. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant all those years ago?" questioned Jiraiya, getting angry at her now for what she has become. But with those questions, Tsunade gasped while taking a swig of sake and inhaled it down her windpipes and started sputtering while coughing with what little sake in her mouth going everywhere. After her coughing fit, Tsunade looked at Jiraiya with wide eyes like she was caught with her hands down her pants in public. What? How did, stuttered Tsunade, finally looking away from Jiraiya. "Sensei told me," said an irritated Jiraiya with anger still in his eyes and chakra slightly flaring, making the sleeping Naruto fidget in his arms and making him calm a little. He had his suspicion that time you took that long-term mission before the start of the Second Shinobi War. "So I want to hear it. Why didn't you tell me?" questioned Jiraiya, again staring down Tsunade with an intense gaze. Tsunade, not looking at Jiraiya, remembered the burnt-out building that once was an orphanage but wasn't any longer, and so decided to tell Jiraiya her reasons. "The reason why I left the village was because I didn't trust the people within it and didn't need the attention of the other nations at the time either. So I asked Sensei for a long-term leave disguised as a mission and went into hiding," stated Tsunade. "After our son was born, the war broke out. To protect him, I put him in an orphanage till the war was over and later come and claim him as my rightful child. But after you went on your journey the toad sent you on, I had already lost my brother and at the time my lover Dan to that pathetic curse of wanting to be Hokage," continued Tsunade, being moved to tears in her still drunken state, but she still pushed forward nonetheless. "SOW, when the war ended I went to go and retrieve our child from the orphanage like I planned, but when I arrived at the burnt-out shell of the former orphanage, I lost all hope of ever being happy. So I came back to Konohagakure and collected Shizune here," she said, pointing towards Shizune, who was looking at Jiraiya's arms with curiosity. and left the village and never turned back or thought of the place where my entire family died to protect it and received nothing but more pain and sorrow in return. Finished Tsunade breaking down finally after all the memories and lose she has just now had to remember. Jiraiya looked at her with an understanding expression. He had pondered on the state of their clan while on his journey to find her, and he was a bit saddened that it is mostly non-existent with a few still with the name, but most married outside the clan, with the rest of the population of the village, mostly the non-clan families. Though a full-blood Senju is rare like him, Tsunade, and their now deceased son, but also their now 2-year-old grandson. There are still many in the village that are descendants of full-blood or half-blooded Senjus, so all is not lost for the clan. Still staring at her, Jiraiya spoke in a small voice, "You are wrong, by the way, our child did survive that fire," said Jiraiya, making Tsunade snap her eyes towards Jiraiya to look at him. But with her still being inebriated and being part Uzumaki, she had a temper that made her seem brash at times, which caused her to lash out in anger. "Don't fucking lie to me, Jiraiya," yelled Tsunade, making a couple of the waiters and other occupants in the restaurant move away from the Sannin. Jiraiya, out of fear of Naruto waking, reached over the small table and quickly put his hand over Tsunade's mouth, firmly quieting her from yelling at him some more. "I am not lying to you, Tsunade, I saw the file and the blood test results. Not knowing it, I ended up training him as my apprentice." Finished Jiraiya, smiling at Tsunade, who went wide-eyed at that and started shaking her head back and forth, jarring Jiraiya's hand from her mouth. "OORSS on CC can't be," started Tsunade, but was cut off by Jiraiya. "Oh, but he is. He was adopted right after you left him at the orphanage and was given the name Minato, one of the attendants there, and Namikaze from his adoptive family. He grew up wanting to be Hokage and met the love of his life, Kushina Uzumaki, who also had his dream. He eventually married her and was offered the position of Hokage not long after the Third Shinobi War ended, after saving the Northeastern Army from destruction at the hands of Iowa," stated Jiraiya, smiling all the while. "Our son is Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sado," finished Jiraiya with pride at his apprentice and son. Tsunade, meanwhile, he was saying this, started to sob with happiness and sadness while holding a green crystal-like necklace that she wore around her neck. Shizune, on the other hand, was still intrigued with the bundle of blankets Jiraiya was still holding in his arms, so she decided to voice her curiosity. "Jiraiya-sama, who's the little one you have in your hands?" questioned Shizune, still continuously looking at little Naruto. Jiraiya looked at Shizune with a pained expression on his face. "I assume you guys heard what happened to Konoha?" questioned Jiraiya, getting a saddened nod from Shizune and a teary-eyed nod from Tsunade. Jiraiya nodded in acknowledgement to that and looked around him to make sure people still have kept their distance from them, but to make sure no one was able to listen in. Jiraiya handed the sleeping Naruto to Shizune and pulled out some pre-made seal tags and shuffled through them and found the silencing seal he was looking for and activated it. But that done, Jiraiya continued their conversation, now able to do so without any prying ears for this more top-secret info. Minato was an honorable and kind man. Everything he did was for a reason that was not without questions. He wouldn't seal the Kikbi no Kitsune into just anyone's child if he wasn't willing to do it to his own," said Jiraiya, getting stunned looks from Shizune and Tsunade. "That child in Shizune's arms, Tsunade, is our grandson, our family, and the future of the Senju clan," finished Jiraiya, making Tsunade stare at the sleeping bundle in Shizune's arms. Shizune looked towards her master, who was looking at Naruto in her arms. Shizune made a motion to see if Tsunade wanted to hold Naruto. Tsunade, seeing that, tentatively reached over the table to get a hold of Naruto, cradled the sleeping child in her arms. Though with Naruto being moved around more often than he is used to, he started to fuss and wake up. He slowly opened his cerulean blue eyes and looked up at Tsunade. He let out a cute little yawn that made Shizune cover her mouth and giggle a little as he continued to look at Tsunade. Losing interest, he started to look around and then spotted Jiraiya, who was smiling at the display of Tsunade holding him. "That lady holding you there is your Abe-chan, Naruto," said Jiraiya, nodding towards Tsunade. Naruto turned, looked back at Tsunade and stared at her while smiling and making noise like he was trying to speak. And then they were surprised by what they heard Naruto say. "Bashan, Bashan, Bashan," started to repeat Naruto over and over again, not being able to pronounce the C correctly, but also having grabbed a hold of one of Tsunade's bangs and was playfully tugging on it. Jiraiya smiled brightly at the display and laughed loudly. "That's right, little man, she's your Bachan. She's coming back home with us, right, Tsunade?" sternly said Jiraiya, looking at Tsunade. Shizune also looked at Tsunade with hope-filled eyes that they may finally be able to go home and stay there. Tsunade, on the other hand, barely paid attention because she was staring at Naruto intensely. He reminded her so much of the baby boy she left on the orphanage step so long ago for his protection. Now she has found out that her son lived and grew up to be a Hokage and had his own kid that was right now in her arms. Not only that her son died protecting Konoha against the Kikbi no Kitsune and sealed that very beast into his son. If her sensei didn't ever run those blood tests by wanting Naruto here to have family to be around. Then he would have grown up in a very lonely environment that would emotionally scare him for his whole life. And with him being a Jinchuriki no less, he would be hated by the entire village without any love in his life and would eventually despise the village and want to destroy it. She would not let that happen, no she could not. Stealing her gaze onto Jiraiya with sheer determination in her eyes that already told him what he wanted to know. Nodding, Jiraiya spoke with a smirk, alright then. We will spend a week here before we set out around Fire Country paying your debts Tsunade, then we make way towards Konoha. Said Jiraiya, getting a glare from Tsunade and an understanding nod from Shizune. Jiraiya laughed a little at that and grinned, don't worry, it will all be covered, so you won't have the loan sharks out after you. Meanwhile, Naruto was giggling away at Shizune, making funny faces at him while he still played with Tsunade's hair. Flashback end present. After the hassle with paying off all the loan sharks for Tsunade and draining a considerable amount of rim out of his bank account, Jiraiya, Shizune, and Tsunade, with Naruto sitting on her shoulders playing with her hair and babbling to himself, were on the main road leading up to Konoha. So how do you think the people will react to seeing him again, and with us no less? Questioned Tsunade, looking over at Jiraiya, who just snorted. Don't worry about what they think. They are not important for Naruto at the moment. We are the important ones, we are his family, and all he needs right now is our love. Finished Jiraiya, getting a slow nod from Tsunade. They soon arrived at the gates of the village and walked up to the gatehouse to sign in so they can head towards their sensei's office. While signing in, the Chunin looked at Naruto, who was still on Tsunade's shoulders, with a small sign of disgust but tried wholeheartedly to ignore him. Jiraiya and Tsunade glared at the man, releasing a small amount of killing intent, making the man cower from the increased pressure of chakra directed at him. But that done with some satisfaction, Jiraiya and Tsunade with Shizune, Naruto made their way through the village towards the administration building where the Hokage office was located. Along the way, they noticed most of the population of civilians were ignoring them for the fact Naruto was in their presence. There were some that were openly greeting them and Naruto, and some that were openly glaring daggers at Naruto. The ninja, on the other hand, seemed to be openly greeting and praising them without any inhibition of anger or being afraid of Naruto. That to Jiraiya and Tsunade was a one-up for them, because that was one step closer for Naruto to win the hearts of the people and later be seen for the hero he truly is by the entire village. Administration building, Hokage office. In the Hokage office, Hiruzen received word that Jiraiya had arrived back in the village with Tsunade and Shizune, so decided to use his spying glass ball to see the reaction of the villagers towards young Naruto. The looks from the civilians didn't surprise him, except for those few who were openly greeting them. But the ones from the ninja were the most heartwarming, because even after what the fox did to the village and their comrades, they aren't taking their pain and anger out on young Naruto. After a little while watching them walk towards his office, he stopped channeling the chakra he was using to the ball and put it away and waited for Jiraiya and Tsunade. It didn't take long for them to arrive when Hiruzen heard a knock on his door. "Come in," said Hiruzen, watching the door open, and in stepped Jiraiya with Tsunade and Shizune coming in after him. "Ah. Tsunade, Shizune, good to see you again after all these years," said Hiruzen with a smile on his face, getting a small smile and a bow from Shizune and a scowl from Tsunade, who reluctantly nodded her agreement. "I am glad to see you, to sensei, but I am not too happy to be back in this village that has taken so much from me," said Tsunade, getting an agreeing nod from Hiruzen. "I can't feel the pain you feel, but I do give my condolences like I have always done," replied Hiruzen, looking at Tsunade. "But that may change for you, I hope." He finished, Hiruzen looking at Naruto, who was now in her arms babbling away while trying to reach for Jiraiya's spiky hair that is going down his back. "So what happens now?" asked Tsunade, looking at her sensei with a questioning look. "Well, I was thinking you could reopen the Senju clan district that has been closed since you left all those years ago and send out the call," answered Hiruzen, calmly looking at Tsunade, who was confused at his last statement. "The call?" asked Shizune, who was confused at what was being talked about. "Yes, the call," started Hiruzen, getting up and walking toward one of his shelves that had many scrolls and books on it and pulled out one that said, "Konoha clan laws. The call is something doesn't really exist, but it was suited for what I was intended to mean. What I mean to say is I want Tsunade to send out the call to restore the Senju as a official clan and not of them dispersed throughout the population of Konoha. That's not possible. I and Naruto should be the only Senju left in the village, sensei. All the others of my family are dead," stated Tsunade, confused at what her sensei was suggesting that was impossible. "And I was planning on opening the district up to see what is left standing and needs to be fixed," finished Tsunade while handing Naruto to Shizune. "Well, you are wrong that you are the last Senju, Tsunade. Jiraiya here is in fact full blood just like you are, Naruto," replied Hiruzen, going into his desk and pulling out the blood test results from those many years ago and handed it to Tsunade. "But you two aren't the only ones. When the village was built, Hashirama sensei wanted all the clans to lose the walls that kept them together and intermingle with the other clans and families who came to Konoha. When Tobirama-sensei became Hokage, here he established the Senju clan as an actual clan and had the Senju district built for the Senju who wanted to stay a clan. Stated here as in making Tsunade not already knowing that for she may have been young at the time, but she was still training to be a Kenweichi and learned fast. Those family members you grew up with were the ones who answered the call when Tobirama was clan head. But there are hundreds of other now throughout the village. Finished Hiruzen pointing at the folder in Tsunade's hand. She opened it with trembling hands and looked through it. She saw many who were full-blood Senju, but the majority were half or quarter Senju. There were also a few who were part of other clans, but they would be later talked to about what they want to do. She also found Jiraiya's name and gasped looking up from the folder to him, making him blush. "Have you seen this?" she asked him. "No, actually sensei said he would let me look at it when I got back with you." Whined Jiraiya leaning over Tsunade's shoulder to look at the list of people he was directly descended from. His eyes widened at seeing the names and looked up to the also shocked Tsunade. Who then both looked to Jiraiya like deers in headlights. "How am I related to the Nidaime?" questioned Jiraiya. "Your mother was his illegitimate daughter," replied Hiruzen. "That is why you weren't born into the clan, it was because he didn't know about his daughter to begin with." "Well, that is unexpected," said Tsunade with tears in the corner of her eyes, happy knowing that she isn't one of the last Senju left and that her family has a chance to be reborn. "When do you want me to make this call, sensei?" questioned Tsunade. "In a few days. You are going to preach to the council about our findings and the hopeful rebirth of a founding clan," said Hiruzen going into deep thought, then nodding to himself steeling his resolve. "But before you leave there is something else I want to discuss with you too. Which one of you will take up the position of Hokage?" asked Hiruzen stunning the two adults and the teenager. "Last time, when do you want me to make this call, sensei?" questioned Tsunade. "In a few days. You are going to preach to the council about our findings and the hopeful rebirth of a founding clan," said Hiruzen going into deep thought, then nodding to himself steeling his resolve. "But before you leave there is something else I want to discuss with you too. Which one of you will take up the position of Hokage?" asked Hiruzen stunning the two adults and the teenager. The room was quiet for quite some time before Jiraiya spoke. "What was that, old man? I didn't hear you right," questioned Jiraiya getting a smirk out of Hiruzen. "I asked which one of you two," he said pointing at Tsunade and Jiraiya, "will take up the Hokage mantle," repeated Saratobi making sure that they understood him clearly. "Well, I won't be able to do it," said Jiraiya getting looks from Tsunade and Shizune. "What? I have a spy network to run and books to write along with helping watch the Gaki. My hands are pretty much tied up for a good while," Jiraiya finished saying getting a nod from Hiruzen and an eye-twitching glare from Tsunade. "What about that kid Minato taught? Kakashi was it?" asked Jiraiya ignoring Tsunade's glare. "He is still young and is in a bad place at the moment with the loss of his sensei and father figure after the loss of his teammates. He is in no condition at the moment to take up the mantle. Other than that the only other person that can take the mantle would be Dansme," stated the Hokage getting serious looks from the people in the room except Shizune who hardly knew what was wrong with this man. "But if her master was displeased then he has to be a bad guy. So that only leaves you, Tsunade. I do wholeheartedly believe in the next generation, but with what has happened in recent years with the Kikbi attack and the finishing war with Komagakure no Sato, they are not as numerous as they were before these things happened. Minato was a once-in-a-generation genius that cannot be outmatched at this moment in time. I am also getting too old for this and won't be around forever, you know," finished the Sandaime Hokage looking at his two students. Tsunade glared at her sensei and was about to deny him the offer but was interrupted by Jiraiya. "Tsunade," Jiraiya started sternly. "You know I am not fit to lead the village. I have my spy network that I still need to maintain and if I end up running the village I wouldn't be able to do that. Not only that people would think me a fool for the job and try and undermine me at every turn. You on the other hand are known for being the only Senju left at the moment and the granddaughter of the Sandaime Hokage. For that they would respect you no matter what. I can't possibly know what it is like to hurt for losing family and loved ones because I never grew up with any. But I do know what it is like to lose a precious student that I didn't know was my son. So please just think about it before you deny it," finished Jiraiya getting a look from Tsunade. "But what about Naruto? Who would watch him while I am here in the office and you are out checking your spy network and being a pervert?" questioned Tsunade getting a giggle from Shizune and a laugh from Saratobi while Jiraiya whined a little. Shizune went into a thoughtful pose and then answered, "I can watch him," she stated drawing the attention of the other occupants in the room, so she explained her reasoning. "I think it would be fun taking care of Naruto-kun. It would be a great experience teaching and doing all sorts of things with him for when I ever decide to have a child of my own," she said blushing at the end. "And I have always wanted a OTO little brother." The other adults looked at her, causing her blush to deepen and them to chuckle. "Are you sure, Shizune?" asked Tsunade getting a nod from the girl. Tsunade sighed, then looked up at her sensei with a form of resignation. "Alright sensei, I will do it," she said, then glared at him, "though you are going to help me with the paperwork so I can spend some time with my grandson as much as possible till he gets old enough to join the academy," said Tsunade, making Hiruzen not accepting her answer. "Alright. I will also inform the village council of this new development and also send word to the daimon that I will be going back to retirement," said Hiruzen, getting nods from Jiraiya and Tsunade while Shizune played with Naruto. "Well, at least we have a few days, so might as well go check out the Senju district and see what needs to be fixed and repaired or demolished," said Tsunade, getting up from her seat, receiving a nod from the Hokage. Walking through the village was like it was when they arrived, the same looks as before and the occasional greeting. It took a while to walk through the village to the long-abandoned Senju district. If anything, the seals that were on the buildings and walls lasted long enough that they weren't too decayed to be refurbished. Granted, they were put in place a few decades ago when Tobirama had the district built, but seals require constant maintenance. The last person that was actually proficient enough in seals that was here last was Mito Uzumaki before she moved to that cottage in the forest behind the district. "We are getting close to the district," said Tsunade, breaking herself from her own reverie and memories of her grandmother. A few minutes later they came to the walls of the district that looks like it has seen better days. Tsunade walked up to the gates and said in quick voice to Jiraiya, who was on her right. When the district was built, Tobirama Oji made it a fact he only wanted clan members to be able to enter the district for the purpose of secrecy and protection from our enemies, stated Tsunade, getting a nod of understanding from Jiraiya, who listened to her as she continued. He was so adamant on the safety of the clan he had Mito Bachan help him devise blood seals for the gate and the jutsu library that wasn't shared with the rest of Konoha. He made it so intricately complex that not even the best infiltrator specialist could get into the district. Even if they had Senju DNA, they would have had to be flesh and blood Senju for it to work. It's kind of like a summoning contract, you need blood, fingerprints, and signature to open the gate and library. She finished, knowing Jiraiya understood what she was talking about. But she hesitated. Jiraiya, wondering why she was hesitating, spoke his wonderment. "Well, why don't you then?" He remembered she had hemophobia, or fear of blood. He sighed. "Damn," said Jiraiya, looking at Tsunade. "Is there a way we can open the gates without you freaking out?" questioned Jiraiya, getting a look from Tsunade. She thought about it for a few minutes. "There is only one way," she said, trailing off, holding out her right palm to Jiraiya. "You have to do it, make a cut on my hand, dab my fingers in it, and press my palm onto the gates," she finished. Jiraiya looked at her with pity in his eyes and sighed again. "Alright, since you are going to freeze up anyway, I will carry you into the compound," he said, grinning like a pervert, getting a knock on the head from Tsunade, who watched in satisfaction as a lump appeared on his noggin. After that little display, Tsunade prepared for what was about to happen. Jiraiya took out a kunai and placed it over Tsunade's palm. She used her left hand to cover her eyes so she couldn't see the blood that will come out. With that as the go-ahead, Jiraiya cut her palm, making her wince a little. But the sufficient amount of blood needed, he dabbed her fingers in it and moved it over to the gate and pressed it there for a few seconds. It took a minute or two for the seal to activate after so long of not being used. With the activation, sealing kanji and symbols spread out over the surface of the gate and glowed a bright blue. It died down after a few seconds from unlocking the rest of the compound. But the gate now unlocked. Jiraiya removed Tsunade's hand from the gate and started to wipe the blood off her hands. To completely clean her hand, he used a mild water jutsu to clean the rest of the blood off. With it done, Tsunade subconsciously healed her wound as Jiraiya cleaned her hand. When he was done, she removed her other hand from her eyes, albeit trembling a little. She turned to look at Jiraiya, who was still staring at her. "Thank you," she said, and pushed the gates open and walked in. The compound was still in relatively good shape, even though things were overgrown and some buildings were structurally compromised. The majority of the compound was still in good condition. Which means that the seals that were placed all those years ago lasted this long without maintenance or repair. Though soon they would need it, which is what she would use Jiraiya for. As they walked through the compound towards the clan head's residence, Jiraiya started to speak, making Tsunade jump a little. "You know you are going to have to get over that fear of blood of yours as soon as possible, right? I don't think the elders would take too kindly to their soon-to-be new Hokage having a fear as tedious as that." He finished, glancing over to Tsunade, getting a glare in return. "I am sorry, I can't help it," snapped Tsunade, making Jiraiya flinch little as she raised her voice. "Every time I see blood I remember things I want to forget," she said, her voice quieting. Jiraiya threw caution to the wind and moved close to Tsunade and grabbed her hand and squeezed it lightly. That action startled Tsunade, who swiveled her head in shock to look at him. "I may not know what it feels like to lose someone that is close to you like your brother or Dan, but I can try and understand them. After finding out we are part of the same clan, I can finally sympathize with you at least a little," said Jiraiya, happy that Tsunade didn't knock him into next week like she did all those years ago. But to his surprise, Tsunade gave him a small smile and a small but faint squeeze of her hand in acknowledgement. Now that we know we have a grandson and possibly more family willing to be around who are most likely ninjas. We are going to need you just in case they need to be healed, that includes the Gaki. Stated Jiraiya, getting a thwack to the side of his head, making Naruto, who had been strangely quiet the entire time, giggle, which also made Shizune, who was holding him, giggle too. Soon they arrived at the clan head house, which was pretty large for a normal head family house of a clan, but the Senju and Uchiha clans were the exception, for they are the two main founding clans, with the others coming after. They looked at how big it was for a second longer before Tsunade moved to the doors while thinking, it has been over 20 years since I have been here. She took a second to look at the intricately carved doors that had the Senju clan symbol and the Uzumaki swirl as they were the sister clan. She turned the knobs and pushed the doors open and walked into the home she has now reclaimed. Unknown location under Konoha. Deep within the tunnels under Konoha, a masked ninja moved down a corridor towards the sound of what he assumed is sparring. On his way there he passed room after room that was filled with children ranging from age 5 to 10. Most of these kids became orphans after the Kikbi attack, while some of them were either already here or they were taken from other lands for the purpose of being spies and then later discarded. The masked ninja assumed it was his lord's way of keeping those that were born in Konoha or the land of fire safe from enemy hands, for if one of the foreigners got caught, it will not lead back to Konoha. Though it was not wise to question such things to his lord, for that would be a brush with death if he was to live afterwards. The masked ninja soon made it to an open circular room that had many bridges crisscrossing up and down towards the seeming endless bottom. In the middle of one of the platforms was a group of sparring adolescences that were not even above the age of 10. As the ninja drew closer, the man sitting on a throne-like chair obscured by the darkness put his hand up, stopping the sparring, with which those who participated kneeled down in front of the man on the throne. After the sparring was halted, the masked man moved towards the throne man as quickly as possible, in fear of upsetting him. "What is it?" questioned the man on the throne. "Jiraiya is back with the Jinchuriki Dansum-sama, he has also brought back Tsunade Senju also," answered the masked man to the now identified Dansum. Dansum impassively looked at his masked ninja with no emotion, showing signaling years of experience as a shinobi. "Did you find out what for?" asked Dansum. "Aye, Dansum-sama. She has returned to take care of the Jinchuriki, but that is all I was able to gather, for the Toad-san and put up a barrier to hide his true intentions," said the ninja to his master. "What are you up to, Hiruzen? Why bring her back now of all times? Just to watch the Jinchuriki? No, it has to be something more. He most likely is giving up the hat again, either to her or that buffoon Jiraiya," thought Dansum, thinking about different scenarios. "No matter, in a few years I will have enough well-trained root soldiers to be able to take the hat by force, or wait and see when whoever Hiruzen chooses falls." "You are dismissed, Kota," said Dansum to his root soldier, who bowed and shunted away. "Soon we shall see whose ideals will be stronger for the tree that is Konoha Hiruzen," thought Dansum as he stood up with his cane and bandaged right arm and face and clacked away down the opposite side of the platform his soldier came from. 3 days later, council room. 3 days later, after Jiraiya returned to the village with Swan, word had already spread throughout the village by the gossipers who were looking for something juicy to gossip about. They were now the talk of the town. They also talked about that kid, as they have dubbed Naruto. Mostly everyone didn't mention young Naruto whenever they saw Jiraiya, Tsunade or Shizune walking around with him. But those who did usually either got angry and bitter at the thought of Naruto, or they pitied him for what people say about him. That normally happened when they were walking around with him. Most of the time since they were back, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Shizune spent most of their time either watching Naruto or cleaning up the dirty house that they were now staying in. It was tedious job cleaning up the dust that collected over the years, but that is what Kage Bunshin are for. They make a job that could have lasted days be done in a fraction of that time. But enough about what has happened and more about what is happening now. Right now the entirety of the village council has been convened by the order of the Hokage to discuss future ongoings of the village, though they don't really know for sure about what is going on. Dansum has only guessed, but he himself isn't sure. Even though he has his spies inside the Hokage tower, he hasn't received credible evidence of anything. At the head of the council table sat the Sandaime Hokage, on his left sat the civilian side of the council, and on his right sat the shinobi side of the council. On the other end of the table opposite of him sat his advisors and Dansum. As he sat there, he listened to the conversations happening around him. Inoichi Yamanaka was talking lightly to Chimza Akimichi, one of his childhood friends. Fugaku Uchiha sat quietly just like Hiashi Haika. Shibi Aburam sat there silently, also listening to the people around him. Sumin Yazuka was laughing boisterously while talking to Takashi Kahaku. Shikaku looked like he was sleeping as always, but being a trained ninja, one would know he is faking it. Many of the Jinin in the room talked quietly with one another, along with the civilians in the room. After his little eavesdropping, Hiruzen cleared his throat to make everyone look at him. When they were all paying attention, he finally spoke. "Thank you all for coming this early in the week for this meeting instead of at the end like it normally is, but things that were once shrouded in darkness have now come to light. He started cryptically getting piqued interest from everyone, even Shikaku, who opened one of his eyes. As you are all aware, Jiraiya returned to the village with Tsunade a few days ago, and some of you may be wondering why. He went to continue, but the council room doors opened and in walked the person of topic, Tsunade Senju, carrying a stack of folders, Jiraiya, and Shizune, who has Naruto in her arms. "Ah, Tsunade. I just started to talk about you returning to the leaf," said the Sandaime, smiling at Tsunade, who walked over to her clan seat that was right next to the Uzumaki clan seat that is still empty. "Yeah, whatever, sensei," replied Tsunade with a yawn, smiling when Naruto started to giggle at that. Jiraiya chuckled to receiving a glare from Tsunade in return. Hiruzen smiled at the display and continued what he was saying. "As I was saying, Tsunade just returned to the village because of some things that were never known and over time forgotten," said Sarutobi. "Make people curious about what needs to be said." Sarutobi looked at Tsunade and asked, "Would you mind continuing, Tsunade, since it is about your clan after all?" At one question everyone's curiosity was piqued, greater causing Shikaku to actually sit up and pay attention. Tsunade sighed, noticing everyone's looks towards her because it involved her clan. "From what I have learned from Sarutobi-sensei, in a bid to find a blood relative of Naruto Uzumaki, he had the then head medic ninja Asagi do a village-wide blood test on pass to present Shinobi and Kunoichi," started Tsunade, earning a pregnant silence instead of any commotion. Due in part of people taking interest in what their village leader has done for the past 2 years. Within a month and a half of the start of the village-wide test, all the results were comprised into a list. Tsunade said, handing out the folders she brought. "From this list it was found out that Naruto Uzumaki was my grandson." With that there was an eruption from one of the civilians. "You must be mistaken. That brat couldn't be your grandson," yelled the random merchant, earning a glare from some of his fellow civilian council members and all of the ninja in the room bar Fugaku, who sat stoically. "He most certainly is my grandson. The machine that determined this was one that I designed long ago, so I know that it works like it is supposed," said Tsunade, raising her voice at the merchant. "As I was saying before the interruption." Swan glared at the civilian once more. "It was found out Naruto Uzumaki was my grandson, but that is not all. That list was also comprised of many other people around the village with Senju DNA," she said, getting shocked looks from many people, who then scrambled to grab their folders that were passed around, and they looked at the people's names that were alive who were part Senju. "How is this possible?" asked Inoichi Yamanaka. "I thought you were the last Senju alive. Well, you and your grandson now. Why are they spread out throughout Konoha?" He continued to question, getting some nods from his peers at wondering the same thing. Which is to where the Sandaime stepped in to fill the gaps. Back when the village was founded by Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju, Hashirama-sensei all but disbanded the clan. Shortly after his passing, the Nidaime Hokage Tobirama Senju reformed the clan and had their district built. Hiruzen said, answering part of everyone's question. But the call to reform the clan, only 30% answered it, which were the older generation and some of the younger. But with the breakout of the First Shinobi World War, most of the clan that reformed perished because they were a prime target to take out. So over the years of the war, the clan dwindled to only a handful, which included Tsunade, her brother Nawaki, and her grandmother Mito Uzumaki. Finished the Hokage, getting a nod of understanding from Shikaku, who looked shocked for once in his life. The other people in the room were stunned as well. Some of the civilian side of the council were looking at the names with rim bags in their eyes for knowing some of the people on here and hoping to manipulate them to get at the Senju treasures. The Jimnin were also shocked because some of their names were on the list, along with hundreds of others. Most of the clans didn't have any member with Senju DNA, but the one who did thought about the possibilities of having family members who is a Senju and essentially getting a few marriage contracts for more ties to the clan. Fugaku though looked stoic, but if you looked closer at his visage you could see a slight smirk. The Uchiha's rivals are going to be reborn. This is going to be fun. If you don't mind me asking, Tsunade-sama, who was your son? Questioned Shimza, who had many people wondering to, except a few who already knew. I am not going to say for the protection of my grandson, but to those who already know, if I hear one word of people finding out outside this council chambers, I will not hesitate to kill you. Answered Tsunade, looking at the people who she could tell already knew, most notably the advisors Hamura Midokado, Kahari Udatane, and Danzum Shimura. During that one, Kizashi Haruno was looking at the list and noticed Jiraiya's name there, so he decided to ask a question in order to satisfy his curiosity. Swan-sama, why is Jiraiya-sama's name on this list too? He got a look from the council members around him, who to a look at their folders to noticing that fact. Tsunade was going to answer, but Jiraiya beat her to it, like Tsunade being the granddaughter of the Shodaime Hokage. I am the son of the illegitimate daughter of the Nidaime Hokage, said Jiraiya with a small blush while scratching the back of his head. And Naruto's grandfather. That last part caught everyone off guard, though incest wasn't really frowned upon for the ninja clans, since they do it all the time, especially the Uchiha and Hikage, to keep their bloodlines pure. The civilians had various reactions, some looked on in disgust, the rest looked unfazed because they knew ninja clans do it all the time. Everyone though, no matter the morality of how wrong it was, even Tsume was envious that Jiraiya bagged Tsunade, the most beautiful woman in Hai no Kuni. The Hokage cleared his throat, getting the attention back on him. Yes, now what is it you plan to do, Tsunade? Questioned the old Hokage, getting Tsunade's attention. Tsunade thought about how she was going to say it, nodding as she concluded her thoughts. I, Tsunade Senju, the current head of the Senju clan, hereby place the call for all those who have Senju blood, bar those who are of others' clans, if they wish it as such, to claim their right by blood to join the Senju as a clan once more. Said Tsunade to the clan's heads, Junin, and civilians to either look on in shock or nod their heads in acknowledgement of the call. Once the meeting ends, messenger ninja will be sent out en masse to inform those of whom are on the list. Said the old Hokage, getting some highs from those assembled. Now on to the last but not least matter at hand. May I ask what that would be, Hokage-sama? Asked Hiashi Haika, who has been one of the less vocal of this meeting till now. Ah. It is good you asked, Haika-san. Said the Hokage, looking around. As of 3 days ago I decided to retire again and have chosen a new successor. Said the Hokage, getting indignant yells from his advisors. What is the meaning of this, Hiruzen? Why are we, your advisors, finding this out now? Yelled Himura. Yes, Hiruzen, what has brought this on all of a sudden? Questioned Kaharu in a cold tone that made some of the clan heads and ninja there frown at her disrespect of the Hokage. Was that a serious question, or has old age made you lose your eyesight? I, as are you, Himaru and Dansmarin, are close to our 60s. We are getting too old to be the ones trying to protect the village anymore. We have already done our duty for the protection of the village like Hashirama-sensei and Tobirama-sensei has wanted us to do. We have lived far longer than most of our old friends and comrades from our younger years, and I would like nothing more than to retire once more and enjoy the rest of my life with my family. Replied Hiruzen to his advisors, who just scowled at him. Now the person who will succeed me is Tsunade. What? Yelled Kaharu, standing up in a quick motion, knocking her chair back and causing the Anbu hidden in the room jump down into defensive positions to the sides of the room, prepared to attack if necessary. How could you choose someone who hasn't been in the village for over 20 years for the Hokage position? What about Jiraiya? He has at least been loyal. No, she was cut off by a blast of killing intent from Jiraiya and Hiruzen together, making her start to sweat and shake from the pure pressure from it. It was Jiraiya who spoke first. I can't do it. The reason being is I have a spy network that needs tending to, and it can't be managed by someone else for the fact that I am the only one who is trusted by the people whom I employ. Tsunade is the better choice for the fact she was raised and trained for politics, and I was not, that and I am not wanting it to begin with. If I did take it, I would have even less time for my books. Replied Jiraiya calmly till the last part where her crossed his arms, pouting while looking away. Also getting nods of agreement from all the guys including Tsume. Ansem the entire time stayed quiet, for he knew that it would have either been Jiraiya or Tsunade eventually, once he found out that Tsunade was back in the village. So it has come to this. You have won this round, Hiruzen, but I will get what I want if it is the last thing I do. Then it is settled then. Replied the Hokage loudly. I will announce my second retirement to the whole village in the coming days and announce the call of all of those who are willing with Senju blood to reform the clan. Said Hiruzen, you are all dismissed. But that all the people started to get up and head towards the door except Jiraiya, Tsunade and Shizune, who has been holding Naruto, who fell asleep sprawled out in her arms in a dramatic fashion, making the Hokage chuckle at how adorable and innocent the little tyke was. So what now? Asked Jiraiya, who stooped next to his sensei. Tsunade and me are going to get her acquainted with the Hokage position before the announcement in a week, while Shizune helps take care of Naruto. I want you to keep an eye on your spy network to see if there is any response from the other nations to the reformation of the Senju clan. Chances are they are not going to take it lightly. In some places and others they would be sending envoys for marriage contracts and treaties with a reborn noble clan to get some influence in the village. Replied Hiruzen, getting a growl out of Tsunade, who knew that was going to happen whether she liked it or not, but she would be damned if they asked for her grandson's hand in marriage. She wants him to grow up and choose who he wants to love like she and his father did. Is that all, sensei? Asked Tsunade, getting a nod. She said, I guess I will see you in a few days. I will also be getting some of the people who no doubt will know they are on the list to help me renovate the rest of the houses and stores that are in the Senju district, and maybe let some of the public get to open stores there too. Said Tsunade as she got up and took Naruto from Shizune, who curled up in Swan's arms seeking warmth, getting a small smile from Tsunade. Come on Shizune, let's get Naru-chan home and finish cleaning the house so we can get ready for the flood of people that is soon to arrive to help out and pick homes for themselves or their families. Told Tsunade, getting a hi. Tsunade-sama in return. Tsurutobi sighed, things are not going to get easier, are they? He asked rhetorically, getting Jiraiya's reply anyway. No it isn't, sensei, no it isn't. And done. What if Naruto has Senju bloodline and inheritance? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.